Okay. Okay. Well, welcome everybody to our first meeting, Select Board meeting of 2019, January 7th. There it is. You got it, Phil?
Yeah, all set.
All right. So as you can see, I'm sitting in the chair. Phil is physically not here, but joining us via the telephone tonight. So everybody is here. Our first item, number one, call to order, which we're doing. Number two, additions, deletions, changes to the agenda, and any public comment. I assume that's not you, right? Because I know you're here for the next, or up there. Moving on to number three, consider approving sidewalk CIP plan with East Engineering. So this is a proposal that we looked at, I believe, at our last meeting, correct? Or was it the one before that? For Tyler Billingsley and his organization, East Engineering, to take a look at our infrastructure needs as it relates to sidewalks. And I believe that's all that was on that was included at that, was just the sidewalks.
The sidewalks.
For the municipality as a whole, for the purpose of coming up with a plan to take a look at how we're going to intelligently budget for any repairs that need to be done to existing sidewalks, maybe even before we go ahead with any plans to include new sidewalks, which I think is also included in this plan as well, as where missing pieces might best benefit us in a prioritized fashion. So that's what this is. I'll open it up to any discussion that the board has. Yes, Andrea.
I think this is a great idea. What I was curious about was whether he's going to develop kind of a set of criteria to evaluate, whether we're looking at, broken pieces of sidewalk or drainage issues or too close to the road, so that maybe at the very beginning, staff could work with him to see what exactly is going to be the criteria for evaluating, because it's kind of broad. So, and if you're only looking at the sidewalk, doing a visual inspection on, Tyler has pretty good familiarity with it,
Sure.
But it would be good to see what are the criteria that he's going to use to, whether he's going to rank that or just develop the criteria, and then it would be, maybe some input from everybody on how we rank it. But I'd like to know what criteria he's going to use. I don't have any problem, just some feedback about that.
Yeah, one of the thoughts I had on that too is with that, a more detailed analysis, and that way we might have the ability to take care of some of these problems ourselves, immediately, is what you're, I think, getting at, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
And I don't see in his proposal any indication that he's going to suggest new sidewalks. It looks like it's all looking at what we've got and things that need to be improved and what needs to be improved.
No, I think this is, I think this is really for the existing sidewalk network. He is going to look at all the scoping studies and things that have been done. And he's going to provide recommendations. And I think what I understood from him is some of the things that Andrea is talking about. And I didn't give him the indication that he needed to be here tonight because you guys didn't have questions last time, so.
I think just the first meeting,
Uh-huh.
fine.
Yeah.
I can, write down stuff.
Right.
So.
But I think he just wanted to kind of give you guys an initial proposal. We talked about it last summer with him a little bit, or I did, so I think he's willing to kind of tailor it what we're looking for.
Well, it looks valuable to me. I'm ready to vote.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I certainly support this wholeheartedly. I think that, in his plan, he did talk about not just looking at the sidewalks, but looking at the infrastructure around it, like where there might be piping and things like that, so that we're aware if there are any repairs or things that get done, how it may impact the sidewalk. So I think that's good. I had two suggestions, not that it should stop me from supporting this, maybe Renee, you could take them to Tyler. One is he talked about a scanned plan, that it would, have some kind of a drawing or a scanned image of the sidewalk, and probably he put his ratings of the level of quality or whatnot on it, and just to make sure he's working with Alex, that we're using existing digital maps that correspond with the ones we already have. I'm sure he would, but just double check that.
Yep.
And then the other thing is, the plan doesn't have an opportunity for people in town to sort of weigh in, and maybe Tyler could just at least consider, maybe it's just a front porch forum thing or something that sort of says, what parts do you think need to be fixed, or what suggestions you might have, kind of a thing. Just so if somebody, walks these on a regular basis, they either review the plan and have some suggestions, or have a place to at least capture people's ideas.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm happy to talk to them about that too, and if that's helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, I read that, a large scan plan, and I wasn't sure if that was a typo and it was supposed to be scale or
think
scan.
I assume it's a scale, but I
Yeah.
think it's a map he's going to do of the entire
Right, but is
sidewalk
he
network.
doing it at an ortho photo and kind of, so it'd be
Yeah,
good
we
to,
can confirm.
I think that's kind of in line with what
Right.
Phil is suggesting.
Yep. All right. Anything else?
Anything stick out for you, Tom?
No, I think
You
it's.
haven't already said.
I think it's pretty well covered.
Yeah.
We need a motion to approve, or is this something Renee can just move forward with?
I make a motion to approve.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion to approve the contract with East Engineering for the sidewalk
improvement plan.
capital improvement plan.
Second.
And I would say that this is coming out of our capital budget
For the sidewalks.
for the
yeah.
sidewalks, yeah.
So, Phil, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
No, I'm good.
If we're ready for the vote, all those in favor say aye.
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 There it is. And we're underway. Item number 4, consider approving wastewater upgrade planning, Amendment 1. So this was correspondence we got from Wayne Elliott for a draft engineering amendment to the state for review.
Very slow.
What's that?
Oh, no.
Yeah, and as I understand it, that this is to hit our a deadline for our first part of this, which is in our packet as 4B.
It's not the
Is that
attachment.
correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
wasn't able to.
I wasn't
It's
able
not
to
the
open it
attachment.
either.
Yeah, I thought I did the attachment separately, but it looks like
You
I
did
didn't.
do it separately, but it's saying it's 4C is the attachment, right?
I had 4C as labeled the attachment, but it isn't actually the attachment. But 4B is the attachment.
There's something wrong with
Yeah.
Dropbox right now. It's saying, please wait. Something's really slow.
Well,
That's the message I
I
got.
tried it for forever and it didn't.
Yeah. Oh, really?
It never uploaded
was-
and it was,
It was there.
So is it this that you're looking for? Or is there another piece to
yeah,
it?
that's saying please wait because unless, maybe we have to upgrade something on our,
That's new. Yeah, because I was able to open it before.
Is that?
But he has it open.
Yeah,
have it
so
open?
what I did
Oh.
was I downloaded the whole entire folder locally to my machine.
Oh.
So I'm not pulling it from Dropbox.
oh.
Dropbox
And so
is
it
working
labels
fine.
it as 4B for me.
Well, let me see if I can.
Phil,
get
are
his
you able to
email.
see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me just see if I can get his email.
If you want, I can sort of explain it if there's confusion about what Wayne is looking for us to do.
Yeah, give me just a moment here.
Is 4B the same as 4C on here? No?
No.
No.
4C is that please wait message.
Right, but I didn't know if 4B was the
4B
same because that shows the amendment.
Is draft amendment number 1.
Yeah.
So isn't that what 4C is
So
also?
this is amendment number 1 is just the application for the state revolving loan
Oh,
funding application. And then the draft amendment number 1 is the actual amendment 1 showing how much that additional is going to cost.
So
and
to answer your question,
explaining
it's
what
two
it's-
different things.
What's happening.
So Phil, if you wanted to
Sure.
speak to, yep.
So we have an agreement with Elliott,
Aldrich and Elliott.
Wayne's outfit to do this initial design work. And what I think they're looking at is there'll be some construction around our lagoons, and the different design options could require different construction. And so he's realizing that an option or two, not sure that they could do that construction without doing some geotechnical work to verify that in fact they can add some structure there. And so this is an amendment to our grant.
Loan agreement.
Saying that this is some additional work by the night geotechnical guys to do this analysis, and based on the analysis, it will tell us whether we're able to do some structural work around those lagoons or not. So, and I believe 50% of it gets paid by the water grant there.
Yeah.
Right. It's a loan forgiveness program.
Right.
Yeah. So they
So
would be
this is
doing the
just an amendment
bonds.
to that original contract.
Correct.
That adds that cost for the night analysis work.
Yeah. So the original contract was for $59,900. This is adding $13,500 for this geotechnical work.
Which they're going to do starting January 14th.
Right. And so that we'll have that. That's why the application is in there too. So we'll apply for additional amount.
I mean, you can see where, we can't it's potentially, we could come up with a design option that later on we find out, wait a minute, you can't put that structure there. So this is helping to open the door or open our eyes to what's possible around those lagoons.
Right.
Yeah, there's already been identified problems, not with this, but with the actual realignment of the La Platte River there, where it's encroaching on the lagoons, and that was identified a while ago. So I think it's really important that we do this soil boring,
Yeah.
because it's a the soils there are kind of touchy about what so it seems like it's worthwhile to get that information, because it will determine what type of system they can design.
Right.
This is classic getting the horse in front of the cart kind of stuff as I was looking at it.
They probably should have known this
That's kind
a while ago.
I didn't want to say that, but I was thinking that.
Yeah.
but I mean, it kind of makes sense,
Yeah.
and at least it's happening at this point still when we're
Right.
we essentially still are at the beginning, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Hopefully it won't be too hard to do the borings
Right.
through the frost.
And does it tell us? This will happen pretty quickly.
Yes, they're
yeah.
going to get to work on it starting on the 14th.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
They want to get it going as soon as possible, so to stay on
40 feet deep.
Yeah.
40 to 50 feet. Yeah, that's what they told me.
So you need a motion.
Yes.
So I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the amendment for the engineering services that is needed to do the soil borings from Aldrich and Elliott.
In a second.
I'll second.
Is that worded
Yep.
good enough, Val?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other discussion on the motion?
I'd like
Does
to
the
just,
motion need to note that Renee could sign for this amendment, or does the select board have to, somebody on the select board?
His letter said just an
sign.
authorized person, so, if you want to put in your motion authorizing the town administrator.
I'd make a friendly amendment to put that in the motion.
And the second,
Fine with you, Mary
Yeah.
Lee? Is that fine with you?
since you seconded it, yeah. And then you had
So,
something?
yeah, I have, Alder Janelli is going to do a fantastic job. My frustration with this entire process has to do with the beginning of it. Because we're going to be in a position where we have to spend all kinds of money. We're putting a building where a building may be difficult to put. We're going to lose our lagoons, which in talking to our guys in the water and wastewater, really feel like they're working great.
Well, that's another reason why to do this now, because if we find out that we can't build another structure in there, then we have to go back to looking at other ways to retain the lagoons.
Right.
Yeah, and go back to the state and really
Yeah.
push
Right.
for, I totally agree with you,
I
Tom.
mean, just
Yeah.
to put this out to the state, that they need to realize they're putting towns like us in a
absolutely.
ridiculous position to gain very, very little.
Yeah.
And we expressed that when we spoke with them, and they just brush us off. And this is what's going to be happening: thousands and thousands and millions, probably, of dollars to gain absolutely nothing, in my opinion.
It's the state
and we
and
may
EPA,
even lose some, because according to John and Bart, the lagoons do a terrific job of capturing the stormwater and
Well,
at least allowing us to treat it. And what we've seen in
Wastewater.
well, wastewater and stormwater, I believe, goes down. It doesn't go that way.
No, we don't have any stormwater that is directly piped into the wastewater system. Stormwater enters it because when we have high water table, the infiltration, but there is nothing in the design of our
piped.
system that is a combined stormwater and
well,
wastewater
that's
system.
good. But
I mean,
regardless-
sometimes we get high flows because there's so many leaks in the system.
Right, but what
yeah.
they told me is they can actually capture,
Yeah.
the excess, so we don't have the issues like Burlington has with the overflow.
Oh, no,
And
no,
whether or not
we
we're
don't
going to
have
lose that in the
overflows.
future,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But this whole process and the way it was set up by the state, I'm really annoyed. Not that it's going to do any good, but somebody should hear that it's not a good deal for the amount of improvement that we're going to see. It's a silly plan.
It's the state and the EPA. They're
State
getting
and
their
EPA.
direction from the federal.
Yep, and I feel sorry for our users because they're the ones who are going to bear this cost, and there's absolutely nothing we can do about it. And that's-
Well, I don't think
and
there's
that's
nothing we can
frustrating.
do about it. I
Well-
think there's ways that we can present the situation that we're going through all of this, and, because I think we all do sincerely recognize that we have a problem with the lake.
Oh,
And what
sure,
you're objecting
sure.
to is that this is not a cost-effective way of
Absolutely.
addressing the
Absolutely.
issues in the lake. And so I think that's what we want to be sure that we're conveying,
Right.
is that there may be other ways that we can reduce the phosphorus load and address the nitrogen. That is of concern, but maybe this is not the most cost-effective
Absolutely.
approach to do it. And
Absolutely.
but we have to kind of go through these motions at this point,
I
I think, to
understand,
prove what our
That combined
constraints
with
are.
all of the other fees and potential costs in front of us with all of the other upgrades. I mean, this is just the start of it,
Right.
of what we're,
Right.
and not just Hinesburg, but everybody in this watershed is heading right down.
Right.
Right down
And
through.
as I recall, this point source solution will address 4% of the phosphorus going into the lake.
Three.
Jeez.
So I want our users to know that that's the situation we're in,
Yeah.
and unfortunately, it's not right, but we don't have any control over it.
Phil?
Yeah, I appreciate Tom bringing this up because we should be bringing this up every opportunity we have, that we are concerned about the quality of the water going in the lake. But going after this point source, we will spend, if it goes forward, which it looks like we have no choice, we will spend multi-million dollars to go after this very small amount, and it's not maybe the most cost-effective way. As far as the lagoons go, their design work is trying to continue to incorporate at least a portion of the lagoons as treatment because they do work, but it looks like they'll have to do something like a tertiary treatment on the back end of it and maybe something on the front end of it to deal with the ammonia and the levels of phosphorus. So, but I agree with Tom. You know, this is going to cost the people of Hinesburg that are on this system a lot of money.
Well, I'm optimistic we're going to find a different solution.
I hope so.
I'm,
I haven't pulled it out of my hat yet. but-
I'm reminded of our visit of Congressman Welch when he was here. And he gave us 15, 20, 30 minutes, something like that. Not a lot of time because he was a busy schedule and going to many towns, but this was the topic that we brought up. And at the time, he said he didn't know much about it and that he is just hearing about this. And he named off a couple of other towns that he had recently visited, even outside of our watershed.
Up in Franklin County.
Yes, so, but even over more towards Northeast Kingdom, I think into...
In the Connecticut River watershed as well.
Exactly. So this might be one of those opportunities to circle back with him.
It's a great idea.
Yeah. So I want to make a note.
Okay, I'll make a, did we already make the
Yep.
motion? Oh, okay, all right.
All right. Anything else on this topic? If we're ready, all those in favor of the motion and the friendly amendment, say aye.
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 I
There it is. Item number 5. Capital budget and department budget presentations. We have 6 this evening, and we're starting off with Agency Request Review Committee. Thanks for coming. So as we continue our process for forming our budget for presentation to the town for voting at town meeting and on voting day in March, this conversation gets us further down that road. So I'm going to take a moment to pull up those documents. And welcome you to the meeting tonight. Thanks for coming to the heated room.
I'm Kathy Newton, and this is Maureen Barnard.
Yeah, thank you.
And we had a full 5-member committee this year, so that was great. We've carefully reviewed and discussed 11 submitted applications with priority of awards given to the agencies to serve the greatest number of Hinesburg residents. And do you all have a copy of? The last few years, we've been in the range of $28,000 to $32,000, and we try to kind of level fund in that area. We had one late application, which we did not consider, and we called them and told them that they could have a Hinesburg resident speak for them at the town meeting, because it was going to become an issue if everyone was late. We would never get the process. And we also had 3 applicants that didn't apply that usually do. So that's why our funding is a little bit down. If those 3 come in next year, then we're going to have to adjust all the numbers. So that's why the difference there. Do you have any questions about any of the funding? Would you like me to go down through each one, or?
For me personally, I don't think I need to have you go through each one item by item. The questions that I had, mostly you just answered, there, just, wondering, and you can't speak to why no application. That's,
Nope.
not anything that you could speak to. It is interesting to note, or it would be, how can we note it maybe, as to explaining in the budget, it being a lower number and it having to do with the fact that these applications didn't come in. Because if these applications do come in after the fact and an amendment is raised from the floor and accepted, it would be, perhaps you might be able to speak to that in the moment, you know, that if an amendment came in for another $2,000, say, you know, for a couple of or one of these, that just kind of level funds us, you know. That's one of the things that comes to mind. Our town has always been really generous in this regard, of making sure that that this is a priority in our budget, and it's always talked about. So that's the one thing that comes to mind is explaining it being a little less. I mean, which you've done here, but having it sort of out there, and that perhaps there is still room if somebody does.
A couple of the applicants that did not apply are kind of our big ones that we fund quite
Yeah,
heavily.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
I have a question about HopeWorks. Isn't that the organization I've been reading about that the whole staff just quit because they felt that the administrator was not being tolerant and open to all
Yes, that's
types of
correct.
people?
Yes.
So is this, and one of the things that people said was this might affect their funding. So I'm wondering if we want to think about that.
think about it in what way are you trying
Well,
to find
I
an
don't,
application?
I have not seen any concrete steps that they've taken to address the problem. It seems like they're kind of madly trying to get Band-Aids to cover it up. And so I wonder if you want to think about whether that's an organization you want to continue to support.
I think what the process is here is this is our recommendation at this point, and then if you, as a board, want to make any changes, you can. I think we're just an advisory board to you.
It's true.
Yes.
It's true.
Okay.
That is what their purpose is.
Sure, I assume you know more about HopeWorks than I do.
I don't.
Oh, okay.
No, just what I've seen on TV, so.
Okay.
And this,
for women abusive, for they take care of abused women.
Right.
Yes,
Right, but it was a
and-
certain person was fired and,
they have, we wouldn't have given them any funding if they had not helped some people here in Hinesburg, is what I'm saying.
yeah.
We still
Okay.
want to support them.
You want to support the work that they're doing, but we want to make sure that, that it's a reliable and well-run organization. So,
Right, and what I read was that other organizations were picking up the people that had been supported by HopeWorks. So I was just wondering whether Steps to End Domestic Violence might be one of those groups, but it looks like they didn't apply.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And they have a little different, their mission's a little different
Uh-huh.
in their services.
Okay,
And this is Roberta Sullivan, she's on our committee also.
okay, great.
Well, maybe we should take this, and if any of us feel compelled to do a little deeper digging,
Yeah.
we can find out. You know, I mean, you know, but if they presented the application and they have helped and served people in Hinesburg, and I guess what you're asking, Marilee, do we see any indication that as an organization they're trying to remedy what caused them to be in the
And
news?
this is very recent, it just
Yeah.
happened in December.
Right, and we had come
You'd
up
already-
with this before.
yeah.
Maddie maybe knows about it.
Yeah, I think that it, you know, certainly the concerns you raise are valid, but would require a little bit more.
Absolutely.
You know, and just like a really, really quick search here, I found a 7 Days article. According to the article, there's a 39-page document which staff has made public about what, you know, so maybe therein lies some of the answers.
Right, yeah.
You know, maybe that's something that you might be interested in looking into for us, you know, to continue the work of the agency review, or maybe with some assistance, dig in a little bit deeper on that and let us know.
Roberta did find the original application, and they did serve 20 people here in Hinesburg.
It's a significant number.
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
That's a significant
And the
number.
services they offer are private, so, and it's confidential, so
Yeah.
we can't really look into that any further.
Yeah.
We
No,
just
no,
know
no.
the number.
What's unique about them is that they provide safe places for women to be.
Uh-huh.
And no one, and it's a very limited number, and no one else does that.
Oh, okay.
So, below I understand your point, but.
Well, I
it's
trust
also-
your judgment, and if they weren't doing their job, I'm sure that you would know about that and not want to support them.
But to be clear, though, you're telling us that you don't know anything about this particular concern that she's raising, other than what you and I have read,
On the TV.
on, on the,
On the
you know,
news.
online,
Yeah.
seen
Yeah.
in the news. So,
And
it-
and it's all very recent.
Yeah.
They may get it all together within the next month.
yeah.
So I'm in favor of continuing to support them, especially since they help so many people in Hinesburg.
And we really, it was $200 they
Yeah.
asked for.
Yeah.
So I have one question about Vermont Family Network. I'm not familiar with it, but I do see that the administrative expense of the money that we would donate is 82% of the total. And 8% is for the program. So I'm just a little curious about that, because most of the others are,
Yeah.
The opposite.
most are less than 20%. All are less than 20%. Most less than 10.
Which one did you say, Tom?
Vermont Family
The
Network.
bottom one.
The
Yep, got
last
it.
one.
Got it.
Yeah, it has always been that, no? I was hoping it was a typo.
Do you have that one?
You're
so good.
better at it. They
That's why.
helped 56 families here in Hinesburg, and 82%, please note that our staff are primarily direct service, and that's why
Oh.
So
it's
they're
at
paying
80%.
Staff.
It's for
the
their staff.
Their salary, not-
Okay.
And they're
Other-
mostly the
Okay.
people that come and help.
That
Yep.
makes more sense.
Yep.
And a lot of their staff are parents who have children with various disabilities.
In 2017, they served 19 families, and 2018, they served 56 families in Hinesburg. So,
Yeah, that's not in.
That's not on our page. but-
Yeah, somehow it didn't get into the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
The residents served, yeah.
okay,
It's blank.
okay.
We can add that.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So if somebody from a Hinesburg residence makes an amendment at town meeting to add money, it can be discussed.
It has to be a
Voted on.
Hinesburg resident.
Yeah.
And the person that had a late application,
Yes.
I had quite a lengthy conversation with them, and they are well aware, and they
Yeah.
knew they were going to be late, and,
Yeah,
so,
Yeah.
okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Anything from you, Phil?
No, I think it's a good discussion, and I appreciate the work that the committee does. It looks like the family health, the Vermont Family Network, was probably a typo on there. So
Yep.
if they could get it corrected so that it goes into the town meeting report correct, that would be helpful. Other than that, I am okay with approving it.
Okay.
So I'll entertain a motion.
Do we need one, or is this just presentation?
No? Probably right.
No.
Yeah. Anything else?
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're all
This-
set for the committee for next year?
This service that you provide, I think perhaps we told you last year and the year before, and we'll tell you next year, is of huge benefit to the select board. Because there's a tremendous amount of vetting that is done that happens behind the scenes, just sort of administrative of collecting it all, but then kind of going through and decision making to get this done, and it's tremendously helpful.
Well,
So,
thank you, and thank you Renee who gets us all the information.
Yeah, it's true, but
It's difficult with all the emails coming in and.
very much so. Yeah,
Yeah.
but no, I
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
We move on to buildings and facilities,
All right.
but no guest. So we'll work this one ourselves. We can. Do we have anybody for any of them?
It's
Yeah, maybe for
it's
cemetery.
possible
Yeah,
the
may-
cemetery may come in.
Really?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mary Jo may come in.
Joe's coming.
Yeah,
Yep.
that'd be great.
After the basketball time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Strange the cemetery may come in.
And I don't know if Chuck is going to come for the energy committee discussion. He may or may not.
I asked just in case we
Yeah.
need to wait on somebody. So
Right.
buildings, facilities, I'm assuming nobody will. It'll be us. So
Yeah.
let's do that since we're
All
here.
right. So we can just open up the budget.
That's the 5B as I see it.
5B, that's what you looked at before briefly. We didn't get a chance to really spend a lot of time on this one. But I also, what's you can do is look at the tabs. So if we want to look at the capital items, rather than looking at the budget on that worksheet, because I have the budget inputted into the master that you have as well. It's just number 5. And I've made some adjustments since that came. But the capital items are things that we want to consider, what capital transfer amount we're going to do for FY20, what you're going to put money towards. So those are conversations that I just need some clarity on.
Didn't we talk about this earlier?
We talked about it a little bit, but we didn't decide for sure how much you wanted to do. So I have, if you see the tab that says FY19 to FY24 CIP, that's all of the items under buildings and facilities. And I just put in some figures,
Okay.
but you guys were going to think about it
All right.
and give me some more direction at this meeting.
Are you with us, Phil, on the right sheet?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
We can do it a couple different ways. We can just look at the regular budget, if there's any questions you have in the regular part of the budget. And if you don't, then we can go to the capital transfer amount and look at the capital items.
I'm looking at the capital items.
Okay?
And, because I think that's, it's more detailed and a
Yeah.
little bit better. So I think we had questions on, well, you have the yellow highlights and the blue highlights.
Yeah.
And, what was the blue highlight, what's the difference?
The ones that we didn't fund in this current year.
Okay,
But they
right.
were ones for you to consider.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely would support putting the 2,500 in there for lot 1.
Yeah.
Just to whether we do a little bit more planning or we start potentially planting some trees or putting some benches over there. I just think it's a good idea that we really are sincere about wanting to see something happen there, but
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be a huge amount. The sidewalk plow, I certainly think we need to be doing some capital planning on that and putting 5,000 in for either replacement or maintenance or, doing some other piece of equipment makes
Yeah.
sense.
And my thought, why I put that in there is even if we're not replacing it now to get something different, we're saving towards.
Yes,
'cause
absolutely.
It's an older,
Yep.
I
Yep.
think it's a 2009.
Yep.
It's almost new now.
So many pieces
Now-
got replaced.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And is it working well?
Yeah. Hello tomorrow. Right?
Yeah.
Well, it's been used.
It's been used.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
they say it's working well now.
Okay.
It's just-
Good.
Yeah.
And there is not a snow blower attachment to it, is there?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there
There
is.
is.
Yeah, there is.
Oh. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Yep. So you think the 2,500 for lot 1 and 5,000 for a sidewalk plow? Or is everyone in agreement with those amounts?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Sounds reasonable.
I guess we'll see where the overall budget comes out for me.
Okay.
I mean, I might be willing to reduce that one based on maybe some different type of planning that we're gonna do.
For the plow, you mean?
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe. I've been talking about it with the guys, so.
Okay. All
And
right.
it's an expensive piece of machinery, and
It
we
is.
do need to save.
Yeah.
But let's see where the rest of it comes out, and maybe there's
Okay.
a couple other options that.
Okay.
And isn't there kind of a lot of different ways we could go with what piece of equipment we could buy for a sidewalk plow?
Well, that's something I've been talking with Renee and the buildings
Yeah.
facilities crew.
Yeah.
Just this morning, as a matter of fact, about some of the sidewalks are so tight
Yeah.
that it might be advantageous to use a walk behind. Have one more part-time person to use the walk behind in the tighter areas, and have the big one go out on some of the wider stretches. Because for one person to do it, even with the big machine,
Yeah.
takes a long time,
Yeah.
and it's hard to get to them all.
Yeah.
So I think 2 part-time people cut the job in half, make it a little bit easier on the equipment and the personnel,
And get the job done.
and get
quicker.
the job done quicker and probably better.
Better.
So
Especially with some of the tight areas where the tool cat is just too wide.
It's
It
too
is impacting,
I can speak to one of those right in front of my house. One of those places.
yeah.
yeah,
That the sidewalk plow came down, but then just abandoned ship and went back up.
and that's what happens in
And
a
you
lot
know
of.
you know that spot I'm talking
It's
about.
just what happened. No, I don't. I never did that section.
Oh,
but,
you didn't, yeah.
I mean, there's certain areas that it's very, very
But I
difficult.
get it. I get it. You know.
Yeah.
You know, it's just
Yeah.
the way it.
And it might, I mean, I spoke with Bart today, and we're going to work on an overall sidewalk clearing wintertime plan.
Kind of similar to what Mike has set up for the roads, perhaps. You know, with there's an actual plan for how he's going to go about on a storm. These
Right.
roads get done in this way, and this.
That would be incorporated into it, but also the level of service that you should expect
Yeah. We're not chasing
in the
snowflakes.
wintertime. I mean, there are certain towns that don't touch the sidewalks in the wintertime.
Yeah.
And that's certainly not on the table, but it may be a matter of, we can get to this within hours.
Yeah.
This might be a few days, and some parts that are very treacherous. I mean, I'd be in favor of just eliminating them from the maintenance plan in the wintertime.
I'm thinking over the Thistle Hill stuff.
There's certain
yeah,
sections, not the whole thing, but
No, no,
certain
but-
sections are. It's
where you slide
it's
off.
dangerous for the equipment. It
Yeah.
could be potentially dangerous for the operators.
Yeah.
So you got to weigh that balance.
Yeah.
It's definitely dangerous for the tool cat.
So back to the question of cost then, if we're saving $5,000, say, for the next X number of years, every year, like how many years are we looking at? Like, I guess that's a kind of a 2-part question. Like, how many years do we have left out of the equipment we have? What with
I
it
think
being
you
new?
probably got a while left on that.
Well, if
Yeah.
we've just put so much into it.
That's what I'm
Yeah,
thinking.
And it's there, and we might end up keeping that piece of equipment for other things, and.
And as the
and-
2-person kind of.
Well, 2-person, or, you know, it's a versatile,
Right,
kind of
it has a
versatile
lot of
piece of
attachments on it
equipment.
right now.
Yeah, so.
Which are not cheap
So
to
I don't
replace.
think putting $5,000 is too much. I mean, a replacement piece of equipment is going to cost over $30,000.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Easily.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so it behooves us to start saving for it now.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Comments, Phil?
Yeah, I have a couple comments. One is, we talked about the tree planting and maintenance for the next couple of years, and I wonder if we might want to just bump that up another $1,000, so we have a little bit more in there to consider whether it's the elm trees or the ash trees. So I'd be in favor of, bumping that up just a little bit. And we're increasing the sidewalks from 25 to 5, which I think is the right thing to do. And I think we might consider some of that sidewalk construction may be focused on looking at the Richmond Road, and maybe we might use a little of that in some additional planning or some work that starts to move us forward in that project. I don't know if we need a separate line for that, but we talked about it, and I'd want us to put something there. So if we need to do a little bit of work on it, or some planning, or spend a little bit of funds to do some investigative work, it would be available.
And I know to that point, the Trails Committee has already started some of that conversation as well, based on our conversations we've had here.
And well, right now we only have 2,500 in the sidewalk. So are you suggesting that we bump it up to
No.
5?
I see it at 5 now.
That's fine. I saw it as
That's
well.
what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I put it in there as what to look at. 2,500 is what we had in the current year.
Oh, okay.
But for FY20, I had a 5,000 as a.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at the second or the third tab, this FY19, FY24 CIP.
Yeah.
What we had, the reserves that we had in that sidewalk, one was 14,942.91 at 6/30/18,
Yeah.
and then the current year we added 2,500. What we're proposing is adding 5,000 in FY20,
Yeah.
and then 5,000 each year
Yeah.
beyond that.
Yeah.
So the sidewalk construction, what I see, I don't believe it's just for new construction. It's also for replacing existing.
Oh, I would agree almost completely with that. That
Yes.
it's really not for new, that line. It's to continue to maintain what we have. You might have a little infill where something's not quite right and we improve a section. But yeah, I don't see that as new sidewalk construction at all. But I'm wondering if some of those funds that are there might be available for the Richmond Road project we're talking about. And I don't imagine we'll move forward with it, but we would have something there to use if the Trail Committee needed some funds to do some exploratory work, or to help them survey the people there.
Well, I think that would, I mean, I think I would agree with that. I think there's probably enough there, though, that we can utilize that for some planning money, because eventually we would like to do that. So I'm fine with leaving it at the 5,000 with an understanding that, you know, some of it can go into planning, but we're not ready to go to full-scale plans. There's a lot of background work that needs to happen, and if they just need a little seed money to, you know, hold some public meetings or do something like that, do a mailing, that seems like appropriate.
I think what we understood in the meeting when we talked about that was the first step. They were going to try to garner the
Yeah.
support of the landowners, and so I haven't heard if that's happened yet or not.
Right. But I'd go back to what Phil was talking about, adding a little bit of money into the tree maintenance planting, because, you know, we're not going to get a lot of trees for $1,000, and it's going to be costly to start taking them down. So I certainly would be in support of you know, adding $1,000 to that budget. And, you know, then we can...
All right. Yeah.
And town hall upgrades have in there, so we put 2,500 in the current year, and we have 2,500 right now for FY20.
Which, depending on, go ahead, Phil.
I look to you, Renee, and folks that you're working with. Do you think that's going to be enough to, for now, or are you feeling like, geez, that should be bumped a little bit too? I mean,
That's
it's an important building, and we know there is going to be maintenance.
Right.
That's exactly my comment, wondering that's either a lot of money or not very much, depending on what we decide to tackle.
So the reserves that we had as of 6/30/18 were 4,000. We added 2,500 in this current year, so that'd be 6,500. And then if we add 2,500 in FY20, what we're looking at for the roof, I think was it 25 to 3,500, something like that. I think it might have been around 3,500 to do the inspection, replace the slate that needs to be
Really?
replaced.
Only that much.
And
that seems
then-
low.
And then after that, just be on a regular cycle of continuing that. Because we went through the preservation fund, that makes us eligible for grant funding. So we can also apply for grant funding for this type of work that needs to be done too. So there'll be a certain percentage, reduction for that if we do indeed get those grants.
And hadn't you talked about sanding, doing the floor sanding again?
Yes,
Yeah.
the floor needs to be refinished again. Yeah.
So this should cover it, though?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the door.
The
Oh,
door, we got an initial estimate of, is it a couple thousand, 2 to 3,000?
2,500, but I don't.
Yeah, somewhere in there. And again, that's, looking at it right now, if they were to find something else, then it could be more, but that's the estimate of replacing that one. So we do have money in repair and maintenance that I'm looking at trying to get some work done and just out of the general fund budget of the current year.
Wasn't the furnace replaced recently?
Yes.
Yeah.
The furnace is relatively new. It was,
Good for
I have
another
it cleaned
country.
every year
Some
on
guy
a
was there.
schedule.
Yeah.
It was,
Fiddling with it on Friday.
yeah, he did his cleaning. I have
Oh.
it cleaned on it every year, so it had its furnace maintenance clean.
So as we think about the building in terms of feeding it some maintenance and kind of paying attention to it and being diligent about that, what conversations have we ever had about how we're using it? Like, is it laid out the best way for how we need it? And is there any conversations coming up in the future on any kind of remodel of its setup or
Right.
how we use it and who's
I mean,
in
that's
it?
something that's been talked about
Yeah.
in the past. We haven't gotten any.
And I kind of, where I'm going with that is, I mean, is that, I guess it would depend on how big a project we're talking about, but would that be simply just a bond?
Right.
Because we're talking about a lot of money, or are there things that staff would like that wouldn't cost a lot of money?
Storage is definitely an issue
Yeah.
here. Accessibility is an issue. It's something that we do need to do some work on to making the building more accessible. Office space is limited and challenging at times too, but we've all just sort of made it work here. So if we were to add space, I mean, I think it would be likely going out the back or something.
Or even just changing the way we use the space internally.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Nothing that you foresee that we should be kind of thinking about in this conversation is kind of where I'm going with it.
I mean, it's certainly something to check into. I don't know that any of us have the expertise to really design that.
Right. I think, though, really what you're suggesting maybe, Aaron, is whether what we might want to be doing is developing a little bit of a list of what are some issues that we want to see addressed, so it becomes kind of a work plan.
Right.
Because we tend to not do anything until it's a crisis.
Right.
Exactly.
And so if we could just I'm not expecting that there's that we're going to redesign it, but
Right.
maybe identifying the pros and cons to how the space is functioning now.
Right.
But more importantly, that it becomes a to-do list, and maybe it's not high priority, but
Right.
at some point, if somebody
Yeah.
has some time and we can think about it.
I kind of think about, what does the staff just live with that potentially we could
make
maybe
better.
not a lot of money or
Right.
effort,
Yeah.
do something about.
Has there been any thought about alternative methods of heating, like a heat pump? Or when we're redoing the roof, putting solar panels up there?
There's certainly, the Energy Committee is working with Efficiency Vermont. And so they're identifying, what the energy usage is currently and what it's been.
And you had them visit, as I recall.
They visited the space, but they're also doing I think we're going to have something on the dashboard, as far as all of our utility bills and things like that. And they're going to be doing an evaluation of the building and I think ultimately making some recommendations for all of the
town buildings.
Yeah.
We see that in their budget request for this year, so
Yes.
they're working on that.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. We'll be talking about that later this evening.
Do you have a clearer idea of this budget at this point?
As far as
When we started the conversation 15 minutes ago, does this help at all?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
Just in terms of not wanting to artificially end the conversation, but not to drag it on and
Right.
make sure that you have what you need. And
Yep. No.
Is everybody good on the building's facilities for the time being?
Well, I think we talked about changing the tree planting from 1 to 2,000.
Yep.
I heard from Andrea, but I can't tell whether the other folks support this or not.
You can't hear our heads nod?
No, I didn't hear that.
You're not watching us?
I am, but you're behind the schedule a little bit.
Yeah. To that point, yeah, I think you referenced this in your comments, Phil, that we had a conversation about this three meetings ago and identified specific trees. Remind me what those costs were and are we covering them for what we had talked about? Do you recall?
Well, that was to do something in this spring's budget to
Yeah.
address the major trees. And then,
But I got the feeling some of it, because of course this budget starts July 1st.
Right.
So some of that was going to kind of linger over, or I know some of the root work with
Yeah.
putting the whatever in there was an immediate thing. Is there anything else that we were looking to do from that conversation that needs to be put into this budget?
I think that conversation noted that there was work that we could be doing. So I'm just looking to see, it's probably a little more than $1,000.
Yes.
yeah.
A year. And so if we increase that to 2,
We're good.
I think
Yeah.
what we were looking to do to treat those large ash trees was going to be about 2,500. So, I think we have some trees, really excellent resources, and a little bit more might be appropriate so that we can properly maintain what we have.
I would agree. Yeah.
All right.
Yep. You good, Phil?
Yep, and again, I was just checking with Renee whether she thought the 2,500 for the town hall was good, based on her explanation of what the things they're doing right now. It seems like it's going to cover us, and there might be more in the future, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely wouldn't want to go any less than 2,500. But I think that it could give us the money to get a clear understanding of what, prioritize, looking through the list that we've already been given, to prioritize what needs to be done first, and then look for grant funding and see where we're at in the current fiscal year as far as what we have left in the general fund budget.
All right. Good. If we're good, are we good? Lake Iroquois Recreation District is next on our list.
So I've had a lot of email conversations with them. So remember last year they increased our amount, and we had a lot of back and forth with them regarding how they were, how the people who lived on the road were also participating in that. And the explanation that they gave us last year that the residents on the road take care of everything beyond the beach. And so they're in charge and pay for all of the maintenance in the road work beyond the beach to the end of the road. Lake Iroquois Recreation District pays from the beginning of Beebe Beach to all the way to the beach. And so that's what's
The first section of road from
the first section
from the
of the
town
road.
yeah.
Yep, from the town road to the beach area, beach access. So they are asking for 2,900 this year. It used to be 600 was the town's thing, and they've increased that to 1,500, I believe. And so, and then still having it came to a total of 2,900.
Yeah.
So I asked them if they've worked on a sort of an MOU, because I knew that was the question last year. So he said that Bruce Horse said they're going to be doing that at their next meeting. They're going to be discussing that, but that's not until the 17th. So for now,
That's still
the 2,900.
works for us.
The 2,900 is what I understand from them is,
Do we have a sheet on that?
it's just been emails. I was trying to
see,
get
yeah.
more of a clear thing, and
Seems
so,
like they could present a written document that's
Right.
asking for that money.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, so,
And their justification about why Lake Iroquois, why the recreation district should pay for that whole long thing and not the residents any of that? I mean,
right.
I just.
They are gonna gonna be applying for some grant funding for the stormwater treatment, and so the residents may be putting some money towards that, match towards
Right.
that.
They need to give us a
But
presentation.
it's all been through email, so
Yeah.
that's why I was,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
my understanding is we're gonna have something a little more.
Okay.
You know, I always thought $600 for the town was a good deal
Yeah.
for the recreation district. But like you said, I mean, everybody maintains their own roads, and I don't think Hinesburg should be on the hook for maintaining basically a private driveway for 10 months of the year,
Right.
right? So maybe there's a happy medium somewhere.
So
Right,
we
and-
don't
and
pay
it-
it during the winter. We don't
No,
pay
I
it.
understand.
It's only during the summer, the times
That's what I
when the
mean.
beach is open.
I mean,
yeah.
Hinesburg
Yeah.
residents really only use the road for about 2 months out of the year.
And it's
Right.
not just Hinesburg residents, there are a lot of buses that come in there. That must do a number on the roads too. Camps that come in with buses.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the
Yeah.
point is that I'd like to, I want to support it.
Right.
But I want to see the rationale of how
Right.
they're going about doing
Right.
it. I mean, they have the ability to ask for this money, and our only leverage is just asking for better explanation and
Right.
bringing it to the voters, and I
Right.
want to do that, but, you know,
If we
in
can't
this day
explain
and
it.
age,
Right.
we need some more specifics about how they're going about doing it.
Phil?
I agree with that. I mean, at $600, it always seemed like a bargain. But, now that it's increased, it seems appropriate that they share with us in the same way we've asked the library to share their information or the fire department, just share with us where the money's going and how it's being used. And that allows us to ask intelligent questions too.
And to explain it as we present it to the town.
Exactly.
Right.
If we can't explain it, why should anybody support it? Kind of. I mean, it's sort of a logical thing, but that's, I think, going to be an easy thing to get taken care of. I mean, I'm sure you'll invite them. I'm sure you invited them for this.
Yeah.
So that's good. Anything else on this particular topic?
Nope.
Hearing none. Town Administrator, Energy Committee, Economic Development Committee is next on the list.
All right, well, why don't we start with the Energy Committee's budget request here before we,
Okay.
so you have that 5D in your packet.
Yep.
And so Marilee, you were asking, so this is
Yeah.
where they outline what they're planning on using their increased request for. So this year's request is for $3,100. They detail what that's for. So they're going to be doing a municipal building energy assessment. And for $1,500, they'll be working with Efficiency Vermont and other groups to review the energy efficiency of the town buildings get estimates for the work to get done, assess the renewable energy potential of the town buildings, and get estimates to install renewable energy systems. And
Buildings, that's, he has plural, so that's more than just this building, correct?
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
municipal buildings
great.
we're looking at. They're gonna do a study and outreach for options to heat and electrify homes, working with UVM to analyze the present options for Hinesburg residents to heat and electrify their homes. Once the study is complete, produce a brochure and townwide effort to get the information to the residents of the town, $1,000. 2 informational workshops at Town Hall for energy efficiency.
They've
which
done that in the
They have been
past,
doing
yeah.
those,
Yeah.
so $100 for that. And then preferred renewable energy sites in Hinesburg, research and outreach to assess good renewable energy sites in Hinesburg and move the process along to get a preferred status for these sites for $500.
Does that mean sites that would be good for solar panels or for wind turbines? Is anybody talking about wind turbines anymore? What does,
I
or
would
hydro?
say
Not sure what that
solar.
means. What?
Bill says it's always solar,
Okay.
in his opinion.
It could be mini hydros.
Yeah.
So they didn't detail that, they just
I
did a
was just
general term
curious.
of renewable energy sites.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a lot of work done, kind of the RPC did a lot of that, which the Energy Committee was aware of, but I think it's, that is all at, kind of a large gross scale, so really being able to hone in on sites here would be good.
If you develop the solar on preferred sites, you get a slightly better deal.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I imagine those conversations will happen in conjunction with the planning commission as well.
Yes, it's all part of the regional planning
Right.
process.
Yep, yep. So the bulk of this request is the $1,500 at the top for the municipal building energy assessment, which you could look at as, in one way, as money spent to save money, I suppose. These energy assessments, I'm assuming, are not free. And if we're talking about many of our buildings here, are we looking at $1,500 being a bargain? I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's a more detailed.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, I can speak to this. First of all, I do support this. I think the people in town support energy efficiency. And if you look at some of the people we've appointed on the energy committee, they know what they're doing. And so I like the outreach they've done with people in town. And I think this focus on our municipal buildings and the opportunities out there for people to utilize electrify their homes, which is the most efficient way to heat and cool them now. This all makes sense to me. It seems reasonable.
Very
And
good.
And it's not redundant. I'm asking Renee whether it's redundant to some of the work that you've done already by working with Efficiency Vermont.
That's the question I was going to ask.
So,
actually.
what I suspect is this is a more detailed assessment, whereas mine, the one that I had, they do that for free. It was a free walkthrough and giving recommendations. They give a list of recommendations. So they are aware of it because they also were.
Okay.
I included them in that,
Okay.
and they had someone that walked along with the energy efficiency person. So I'm assuming this is just another. This is a more detailed version.
Do we have an idea of what the deliverables would be from this? Is it a written report? Is it a scorecard? Is it, something that, it says get estimates for the work done, so
Right.
it sounds like they,
They didn't detail what that's going to look like, but I can
Right.
certainly ask them and have them provide more information. Or if you'd like
I mean,
someone to come
I'm-
at the next meeting, I could.
Yeah, no, I feel comfortable with it. I just, in terms of if they're clear on what they're going to get, so it's something tangible that we can
Act upon.
that we
Ideally, if
can
choose to,
share
yeah.
with,
Yeah.
buildings, facilities, we can share with citizens about what this is. So I just, if they have an idea or an example maybe of what this would look like if it's been done in another town or something like that.
Okay.
I mean, I totally support it. I just,
Again, it hits
want.
back at our same conversation
Yeah.
with the Iroquois.
Yeah.
Just documenting and fleshing out that request a
Yep.
little bit.
Yeah.
It does. I agree with your first question. It seems redundant. It seems like we've done this in the past. Maybe we haven't, but I know you can get Efficiency Vermont to come check out your house for free.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
maybe
but
there's-
to do a true energy audit, you have to pay for that. So
Yeah.
they'll come in and do just a freebie, but I do.
I know in some of the information that they were trying to gather, I don't know if they did that as part of the Energy Committee, but there was a lot of information, a lot of this done quite a few years ago. And so I was able to pull some of that information. I think Alex got some of the information to send to them. So I think they're looking at all of that, and so that they can have what they need to kind of update that. But they can explain that.
Yeah, maybe
better
they just
what
can
they're looking
explain what's useful about the past information that's been gathered by the town staff. I know Rocky started doing this a long time ago too.
Yeah.
So, how's this going to be different than what has been done previously?
I believe Ray Keller also worked on
Oh,
it.
yeah,
And so
right.
I know he used to be on the Energy Committee, so I don't know if it was during his time on the Energy
Yeah.
Committee or before, but Ray had done a lot of research on the energy usage here at Town Hall anyway.
Yeah.
So, would you like me to have them come, or at least Chuck come, or someone to the next meeting?
Or just write it
Or
up.
just ask those
Yeah,
questions?
just those.
Okay.
I mean, certainly, I welcome the conversation,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I don't think it's necessary per se.
Okay. All right.
But again, I support the idea. Certainly, like I said, you can look at this as money spent, as money you're saving.
Yeah.
Ultimately, and it sort of falls under the category of responsible. Like if you have these assets, not only do you maintain them, but you run them properly.
Right.
So,
And I know that the Energy Committee has been trying to work with the police department, with Frank, to try and get in touch with him, because they have had some ongoing questions about how the efficiency of the heating system there.
Yeah.
I think there's been a hard time to make connection there, but certainly there can be a first step there.
Okay.
And
I mean, that would be a question for me to ask, is we've built energy efficient buildings, so they were supposed to be. How are they working
How
in
are they
comparison?
performing?
How are they performing?
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And if they're not performing the way we expected,
Right.
maybe there's
right.
more
What can we learn
significant
from-
questions we need to ask about
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
if we're getting the bang for the buck.
Right. Yep.
speaking to the police department building, you're saying?
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Were you good, Phil?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Marilee, you good?
Yeah.
Moving on to Economic Development Committee?
So the Economic Development Committee, I think I explained to you in the little agenda summary that they are requesting maybe temporarily pausing their committee.
Oh.
And then just putting their efforts into the revolving loan fund committee, because it's the same,
Yep.
the same group of people.
Same forward motion.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's what they want to kind of talk to the board and get an idea of, like, how would we go about doing this, what it's going to look like, and get your thoughts. So I can certainly schedule that for another meeting, but I kind of wanted to plant the seed in your minds, and if you have any thoughts or anything that you want me to bring back to them.
Well, I think
can
we
do
have
that.
some excellent resources in town that could really help that committee.
Uh-huh.
And maybe we can twist some arms and get them to come and
Yeah, I mean, I
And-
think
and
that would
work
be
with that
helpful.
committee.
Right, yeah. I mean, there is, we do have an applicant for the revolving loan fund committee.
Oh.
And so that's, he's actually a new banker at National Bank of Middlebury and new into town. And so those.
Oh, the bank wants to borrow money from us, huh? That's a new twist.
But he's an applicant to be on the committee.
Yeah,
To be on the committee.
to be on the committee.
To be on the committee. No,
okay.
not an applicant for the funding. We haven't found that yet.
Okay.
But, so I think they're wanting to, come up with ways to really garner some interest
yeah.
in that and want to learn more about what the deadlines are and what they need to be doing
Okay.
to get that really active again. So.
It's a little surprising that we haven't had an applicant yet with the expansion with Frost and
Foam.
Right.
foam.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe they don't know, or maybe it's just an amount of money that the revolving loan fund can't provide. I don't know, but
It could be, the interest rates of other
That's, I
things
think
are-
part of it
it's-
is interest rates are pretty
Probably.
low.
Yeah, yeah,
So we won't have to worry about that for too long.
right,
probably not.
right. Things could be changing. So,
I think that's a good question. I'm also curious why, it seems to be sitting there unused, and I'd be curious to see what the economic committee has to say why, and is this normal, or are they worried of us losing these funds? Because that would happen if it doesn't get used.
right.
Yeah, and there's also this opportunity to maybe expand the criteria that they first developed for how it could be used. Because some of that money can be used for, in other communities, it's community development, not just economic development, and it is used for affordable housing or, kind of other kinds of community projects, potential community projects. So they might look at the whole state criteria for how that money, they came up with the specific criteria for Hinesburg, but they could look at it more holistically, and there might be some opportunities.
Yeah. Okay. Do you see this as something that you want on the agenda before the budget season's over with, or is this something we could have in February, or what are your thoughts?
So, based on your statement that you started with, that they want to suspend activities in lieu of working on the fund, there is no fund request. Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's what they were, when I was asking them
Yeah.
to think, that's what they ultimately provided information. And that's what their thoughts are, and they wanted to
Okay.
talk with the board and see.
Yeah, so let me think about that question. If you have, what you're asking is how might that affect our budget thinking?
So I think
Essentially.
I think typically like in the current year, I think there's 2,000.
Yeah,
I don't believe they've spent any in this current year, and I don't think they spent it last year. I'd have to look and see.
I guess I'd have to, for me, I'd have to say that I'm fine after the budget process.
Yeah.
Unless they have a need otherwise, but
Right.
that I'm one of 5 of us.
Yeah, I don't see any urgency to
Yeah.
meet with them in terms of the budget, because
Agreed.
if they haven't been needing that quantity of money, and even if they, at the last minute, said, well, we want $1,000, I don't think it's gonna,
It sounds like it's there.
Yeah.
As well, so.
right, so,
My only suggestion would be keep the economic development title
yeah.
and kind of fold the two together. I mean, I don't know if they have specific reasons why they want to do it the other way. If they do, I'm fine
And
with that.
was
but-
that committee started under some sort of state charter kind of
No, I think it's
rules
per
or
my
anything, or is it
request,
just- Or is
actually.
it just?
Well,
or
we
is it
had the
against
money.
Or is it the same as any of our other committees? Although I know the Conservation Commission has certain,
Yeah,
Well,
they-
they
We
had
had the
statute.
money
Yeah.
because of the redevelopment of
Yeah.
the cheese plant. And so I think you guys charged this committee for specifically
yeah,
managing that loan.
Yeah,
But
loan fund,
and it was, we could have an economic development committee regardless of the fund,
Right.
of the money
Right.
that we got from that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, but I don't, there, statutorily, I don't think there's.
Anything. I didn't think so.
know.
I don't
There
think
is.
so.
I didn't think so either, but I don't know how
it's
it
just
was
that's why
formed.
we. I mean, well, actually, it gives us the authority to create such a board,
Yeah.
and that's why I do know that the loan fund, there's criteria that they have to use.
Sure.
But yeah, I don't
Yeah. Agreed.
let them do their thing.
Anything else on economic development? Good, Phil?
Yep.
Did we cover town administrator?
We briefly looked at it last time. I don't know if there's anything else that really, outside of the Energy Committee and Economic Development Committee, the only other items in there are the wages, FICA, office supplies, professional development, and then the capital transfer. It's just been the place for the stormwater. So 2,500 is what's proposed in there. I think in FY18 we did it 5,000. That was when we started it. In the current year we did 2,500, so there's 7,500 that would be there as of June 30th of 19. And then if we add another 2,500. So this is to support the work that for the municipal roads general permit, any stormwater work on our roads and things like that.
Which, kind of in
For
theory,
planning.
it could be in the highway budget,
It could.
and but there are stormwater issues within the village that are not necessarily related, because the primary road is 116.
Right.
But that does become our problem.
Yeah.
And this allows us that flexibility by having it
yeah,
in this,
yeah.
this
But
line
at some
item.
point,
Yeah.
we may want to have, at least distinguish when we're spending the money, whether
Right.
it's on rural roads or whether it's a stormwater project that's going to happen in the village. And we have
Yeah.
a number of studies on stormwater, on what we could be pursuing in terms of trying to deal with some of these older developments that never needed permits. That's the situation that we have, is that there's all this development that never needed a permit. And if we want to see infill or some growth within the village, we as the town may have to initiate something, because individual landowners may not be able to do something on their own. And, certainly probably addressing some of the stormwater would be better than spending the, millions of dollars on the wastewater upgrade.
It goes hand in hand.
And
for sure.
to support what Andrea is saying, so for the roads themselves, there is an identified list of the connected segments of road, and so we're able to get grant funding to,
Right.
do those. So there's a priority of the high, the ones that we need to address first, and so we've been kind of working our way through that list.
And there
currently.
are grants, if we identified a storm, we have identified particular stormwater projects. There's a project waiting to happen at the elementary school.
Yeah.
There's a potential project that could be happening on the Jolly property, but it all requires, basically not town-owned property. Because those we've identified the sites where some stormwater treatment could happen, but it will take. And that's another thing that could be on the list of, if we get to it, maybe we'll
Right, yeah.
start working our way on that list. And we don't want to get to the place where the state tells us we have to do it.
Right.
Because then we're reactionary spending
Right,
again. Yeah.
right. And there's grant money to actually implement some of that stuff.
Anything? Phil? Anything?
Nope. Nope. That sounds good.
And
Still
then-
town administrator.
Yeah, still
Yes.
town
I
administrator.
did notice that the Economic Development Committee is still in the budget.
I have it in there right now. This is
Okay.
just to talk about it. That's why I have it highlighted.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we would be talking about this tonight.
Well, I still think we should keep it as a line item. Maybe there's zero money in there. I don't think we want to
Yeah.
I would agree. Yeah.
Well, we have to keep it in there because it has history.
Yes,
Yes.
exactly.
Trust me.
Yeah.
We don't
We
remove
don't
that.
remove
No.
things very easily.
No.
It's like a bunch of years, 5, 6, 7, 8 years or something before you can.
Maybe
You have to
That's
wait,
zeroed
yes.
out
You
or
have to wait
something.
until it's zeroed out
Yeah.
completely. Yeah.
Did we touch on everything you needed to on that topic?
On everything is, but are you wanting me to put a 0 in there for FY20 for the Economic Development Committee now?
Yes.
Okay,
That's what we're talking about, correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Select Board. How do we look? And of course, in that one, the one we always seem to talk about the most, perhaps, is item 440-3000. Well, I guess they're all
They're
that.
all, yes.
Line number 13, attorney's fees.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
However, if you look at your budget status report
Yeah.
for the current
Yeah.
year, we're doing okay right now. That can change because they bill monthly.
Yeah.
So it likely will start growing more. But if you look at, let me just pull that up right now.
Yeah, I looked at that, and my thought is just like Aaron, are we okay here? But then when you look at the budget report so far, we seem to be holding our own.
Yeah,
We certainly have upped this over the last few years.
we
So
have.
I feel pretty confident we're going to keep ourselves out of trouble, and we're diligent on how we use this.
Yeah,
And certainly Renee is diligent on how
yeah.
the select board uses it.
And I did keep it the same as my suggestion, just be looking at, because I have been tracking it to see where we're at. Rather than increasing it, just trying to encourage us to be aware of that so that we aren't overusing that line
Yeah.
and being really careful.
I guess the question is, what do you see coming down the pike? I can think of a few things.
Right. There are some things, but I don't know. It all depends. I mean, we obviously know
Right.
It
the
depends. Tom.
Hannaford
depends.
issue.
Yeah,
I mean, I
It really
think
does.
it makes sense to keep it what it is, and if we have to spend it, we do.
Right.
Go over budget.
And we certainly can explain that.
Yeah,
We can tell,
absolutely.
okay, these were the issues that we spent in FY20.
Yeah,
And this is what we went over budget because of
yeah.
this, so.
I like the idea that we're aware of this budget, and we're aware of keeping ourselves, out of trouble and finding alternative ways to, work with the town and work for the town. So I like the idea of keeping it the same.
And there are situations where I can contact VLCT and then we get a few hours of an attorney. We get either their staff attorney, and if they can't help us specifically, then we get referred to one of their attorneys that they work with. So we get 3 hours of time that's just included in our, as a benefit of being a member.
3 hours.
Of
Three
attorney
hours a year, a month, a day.
for each issue,
each issue.
depending on which
Oh.
issue, any issue that they refer us.
Got it.
Some things they're gonna say, you go back to your own
Sure,
town
sure.
attorney, but there's some things that they will say,
Yeah.
we're gonna refer you to this program.
Have you found that to be? That sounds like a great resource, but have
Yes.
you actually found that to be a good resource?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
Using it, yep.
Good. That's what I assumed you would say.
Right.
Because that's what I've
Yep.
heard you say about
Yep.
most things.
Right.
but,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
I always check to see
Yeah.
which ones I would go that way and which ones that I need to find our own, so.
So Aaron, the line I thought you were going to actually
I know.
mention was line number 11,
Yeah.
also in bold.
Yes.
And it seems as though we have finally found where we want to be with the town report.
I think
You
so.
thought that. You thought
Stepped in that one.
That would have been great. So last year it worked really well.
It will work well this year too.
This year, it went up. And
What's the it here? Cost of
their
printing?
estimate.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is
We're talking about
right.
printing them. Is that correct?
for printing them,
Printing
yes,
them,
yes.
yes,
So this
okay.
is a estimate from the printer. So we
On
got
newsprint.
on newsprint. So then we went and had 3 other quotes from other companies, and they were even higher.
Beautiful.
So the 2,400 in this current year was intended to cover not only the printing of the town report, but also having,
production.
someone
Yeah.
put it together. And now it looks like we're starting at, for this current year, for this town report, just over 2,400. So it'd be 2,500 for just the printing piece. So that doesn't include the postage
And the
and
production work.
the production work.
So what did we used to pay when it was the magazine style?
Is that the 3,800 from FY18?
That's what I had, yeah, for 3,800. I think that was maybe reducing the number at that point. So last year we only spent $1,695. And for the printing and the postage, and then another $720 to have it produced, to have someone put it together.
When you say put it together, do you mean bind it?
No, so the person who does what I used, as far as putting it, all the, when you get the reports and the layout of it, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
So the 2,400 is just for printing?
The 2,400 is just for the printing and the postage. But now what he's saying, it's going to be a little more than 2,400 just for the printing,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then postage
So-
and then production.
And
So what's the number we should be looking at if we were to keep everything the same as last year? The 38 from a couple of years
the
ago?
38 is when we had the hardcovers,
Yeah.
or the
Stiffer.
stiffer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we reduced the number of units. What they're saying, or is what, the current one is saying, is the tariffs are impacting their paper and things like that they're getting. And so that's what the increase in cost is for this year. So I don't know if it's gonna look different next year, if it's going to, it's really hard to anticipate. But for the current town report that we're working on right now is going to cost more than we
Yeah,
budgeted.
I would suggest we put in what we think it's gonna cost. We've made some changes, we heard a lot of feedback. Obviously, people are passionate about this topic. But at this point, we're not gonna change the method, and I don't know that we're gonna change how many we print and all that. I think we just move forward. It's gonna be a few $100 more, maybe another $1,000 more. But, it is what it is. And people have spoken, said they want a town report, they want it mailed out. And, depending on what it ends up being, maybe it's another topic at town meeting.
I agree. I mean, that's the cost of doing business. It was pretty clear that what you just said, that's what folks want, so.
And Roger gave his stamp of approval that night.
He
at the
did.
Town meeting, so we're not gonna change now, I don't think.
All right. I could add another 500 right now,
Yeah.
so to make it 2,900
Why don't you
And
just
see-
do it at 3,000?
at 3,000,
Yeah.
do an even 3,000. Is everybody
Yep. That's kind of what I was thinking.
okay?
Are we good? Everybody? Let's move to cemetery. I think we have somebody here.
I do.
Come on up.
Cemetery's here, Marilee.
She said she'll be here to answer
Scary after all.
questions. She'll be here to answer questions. So you can
It's a cozy group. Come on and join us.
Not my thing.
Thanks for coming.
Hey, I left a very exciting basketball game.
Yeah, we heard. The game's not over?
No, they were up by 12 with 2 to go in the third quarter.
Really?
Very tight game.
Who?
Boys against
Oh, the
South
boys,
Berlin.
okay.
All right. So the cemetery commission, you'll notice a couple lines that I added are for the coordinator and then the associated benefits to pay.
Excuse me.
Just for all of the work that you're doing a lot of researching and everything, the time spent to provide a stipend for that. The cemetery contract is the walls contract for mowing the cemetery. And then cemetery repair and maintenance is the other line item. So they've been working on a capital, talking about a capital plan. And Mary Jo can give a little more information on that. I know there's some tree work and some things that need to be done, some brush cutting and.
Yeah, well, I haven't actually gone down and looked at it. I've had a couple people say a lot of the trees down at the Gilman Cemetery, which is all enclosed in trees, that some of the branches probably need to come down. There's been talk about, doing some more repair work on the fountain, so the fountain's working all the time.
Right.
Instead of for a 2-week period. We've talked some about Columbarium, which is like an above-ground unit. Actually, I have some pictures here if you don't know what they look like. But we're in a 6-foot by 12-foot space. You could do 4 cremations, or 40 cremations, or 30 cremations, depending on how big a one you want to get. And, start layout for those look like they're between 8 and 10 grand. So, which, you get the money back by selling the things, but it would still be an outlay of money. And
I think those are the kinds of things that are appropriate for capital, to be saving for through a capital budget.
So you were suggesting maybe just increasing by 3,000 for FY20. Is that 3,000 that you want to transfer into a capital, or is it 3,000 you would use actually in FY20?
no, it's probably 3,000 we put into
To save.
To save.
Okay.
Because we've also talked about getting some software, cemetery software, where you can click on it and have the deed there and be a little more
Because all of that is
organized.
analog by hand right now, as I understand,
Yeah.
correct?
My game plan, hopefully, either this winter or this summer, is to go in and either take a picture or scan all the deeds, because I'm running down here. Somebody calls me on a Saturday, wants to know about a burial.
Yeah,
Well,
wait
I
till
got to
Monday.
find it, and they want to meet on Sunday.
Yeah.
Well, I need a deed in hand to look at.
Yeah.
I've got it on the map, but I still, most of the time, need the deed too. So it'd be nice to get some kind of software.
And they do make it.
Most of the software I'm finding, though, is anywhere between $250 and $1,000 per year, which is really weird. I'd rather just try to find some, and I don't think we need it that sophisticated, because, our maps work fine. I mean, there's been some talk about doing it so you can do it by GPS coordinates, but,
well, if you-
somebody still has to get those GPS coordinates from
Exactly.
somewhere. So, and I think our maps, for the most part, I don't think we need it quite that
Yeah, I don't
sophisticated
think
right
we're
now, but.
quite there. I mean, although I can think of cemeteries I've been in that makes sense, right? Sure. So they're perhaps designing that software for that, but there probably is a more efficient way that we could improve upon it. So that's what this is. What's the cost that you're saying?
For the software?
Yeah.
Well, right now, everything I've looked at today is between $250 and $1,000 per year. It's not like it's a one-time
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's-
purchase. And then it depends on for how many sites the prices go up.
Yeah, that's
and-
sort of the nature of the cloud-based software. That's where it makes it
And then
sticky.
right, and if that includes the cloud space.
Yeah, that's the nature of how
Is
this
there any way
works.
that could be included with the town website? Would that reduce the cost?
I could look into
It's not
it,
really a
but
website
it's
thing.
not.
It's a program.
Yeah.
It's an app that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that you
it's a
would do.
service.
Yeah.
It's a whole
Yeah,
different
yeah.
classification of, yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather, at this point, talk to somebody and say, okay, how can I get from this spreadsheet even to have it automatically come up and link to, a deed somewhere, and not get quite that sophisticated, but.
And some of that is relatively easy to put together. It's just maintaining it is kind of where you're going to fall into the traps a little bit. But there might be, if you're talking a year or a month
Per year.
per year. So it's not, well, depending on which you go, what option we go with, it's not considerably expensive. I mean, short of staying in the analog world we're at, how many new sites do we bring? How many do we
do you
get?
sell a year?
Yeah, how many do we sell a year?
It varies. This year, I think we sold 7 sites and had 17 burials. Because a lot of the
pre-purchase.
sites have been there forever.
Yeah.
One site had 4 cremations buried all at one time on it. So it varies. But yeah, like this year we sold 7 sites and 17 burials. So.
Yeah. So it's not something that is exponentially growing here, which it's kind of the
No.
answer I expected.
Yeah.
So
Although I think there's a change in demographics happening right now.
yeah.
So, I think there can be quite a variation.
Yeah. But I guess where I was going with that certainly is the solution probably should be proportional to
Right.
our
Yeah.
Right.
our-
It's not like we're doing a burial every week and
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's interesting to know a little bit of how the cemetery works and that it is a municipal
Yep.
cemetery. Or we have, how many,
Yeah.
17 cemeteries?
No, there's like 8 or 10.
Oh, 8 or 10, but
Yeah.
really only 3.
A couple are private.
That
Only
are-
3 are that are in use.
that are
Yeah.
in use.
Yeah.
And that people buy their own plots, the town or
town.
the cemetery, from the cemetery. The town is responsible for the overall maintenance of the grounds, but individual families or whoever are responsible for the stone itself. And so we have a lot of stones that are very old and falling down, but there's no
There's no family.
there's no family
Yeah.
to pay for the repair on
Yeah.
them, and yet it really, this is me just speaking personally, is I feel like it adds a lot of value to our community to have that history and to have those stones. And so I would really support there being a capital budget, an item in the capital budget, so that over long term, we can try to maintain some of those markers that don't have anybody who's
Even if we fix 4 a year or
right,
something.
so over time, and you can contract with people who do that kind of work.
Because the reality is every day that goes by, water, wind, and sun is doing the work.
Frost.
Well,
Yeah.
the big
Frost,
thing,
is just like working against us here.
the big thing too is those 1800 stones they're only 2
Really
foot
thin.
thick.
Yeah.
And, they might be 3 foot high, but then there's like this much that goes in the ground.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're marble, and they're, they definitely are not holding.
Is it
up
my
as well.
understanding that for the last many budgets, we haven't really put much money into cemetery?
None. I
Yeah.
don't think there's been anything besides the 30.
That's
Not to
the
cover
contract,
contract.
the contract for
And
mowing.
some from-
Contract and repair,
and repair and
2,000 for
maintenance.
repair
Yeah.
and maintenance, and that's all
Yeah.
that's been done.
Right.
Yeah. No, I agree that I think that's the time is good for making some efforts here to kind of get to whatever it is that the solution is appropriate to whatever it is we're trying to accomplish here. And it sounds like there's a bit of a range, and there's a couple of different things to look at. In terms of sort of management, but also managing what's coming in, new business, I guess, but also in terms of taking care of what we already have. So this budget calls for, are we looking at 500 or 5,000?
I only
Or is that
put the
just a number that you
5,000
threw in there?
because she was suggesting to increase by 3,000. I just wanted to get clarity
Correct.
on what you were,
Yeah.
if it was something that you were going to actually expense in FY20
And
or
we were
saving towards
right, and we were talking about the 3,000 as being a capital
transfer.
budget thing, but like Andrea said, if we wanted to put in a little bit more in there for fixing 3 or 4 stones
Yeah.
a year, that probably wouldn't be in the capital
No, that
budget
wouldn't.
No, well,
money.
I think it could be in the capital because it would be, you might wait until you had, $10,000 and they could do a bunch of them. I mean, I
Yeah.
think it's something to think about, but I think starting at least to identify, put an item in our capital budget, start putting it, if the cemetery commission can develop a list of what are potential projects, and then we can work to identify which ones are worthy of being in the capital budget and accumulating some money for it, and then which ones would be kind of ongoing operations and maintenance.
Right, so, yeah, in the ongoing operations and maintenance, if you have that same list you're talking about, and there are some things that are smaller items that could be taken care of by either increasing the repair and maintenance budget line and just, okay, we're gonna do these in FY '20, we're gonna do those in FY '21, and sort of having a plan in that way too.
And the cemetery has a separate account that Missy manages, with the Cemetery Commission manages, and some of that money is invested, and some of that money from that investment gets repaid to the town to help cover a portion of the cost of the mowing and maintenance.
Yeah, I think she said it
How
was,
is
what,
that?
3,000 last year?
How is that managed? That
$2,800 went back into the town.
Well, it's the
budget.
money that gets, that is.
A better question for Missy.
It's a question for Missy, but I mean, the money comes in when the sale of the plots,
Right.
and so that gets.
It's not spent.
It's
is what
not
you're saying,
spent,
what
but
you're
I
saying.
mean,
Got it.
but a portion of that money goes to help defray the costs
Got it.
of maintenance, because
And then-
essentially that's what people are kind of paying for.
Sure.
Right, and then there's, from that other money, there's interest or something, and a portion of that, along with a portion of what we get for selling the sites, goes back to town. Like I said, I think here it was $2,800 went back in the town budget last year.
Yeah. So the money that was established that's in that fund, we're, I guess ideally supposed to just be using the interest on it
Yep.
to offset the
Probably not a
expense.
whole lot.
But not enough interest is
Yeah,
really
so not a
generated
whole
to
lot.
cover all
Right.
those costs at
Right.
this point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the damage that we had to that, I don't know if you guys know it, but the
Yeah.
one down on 116, we
did get
got
a
paid for
report on
that, so.
Yeah, so.
Oh, we did?
Oh,
Yeah.
you did?
Yeah, we worked with
Oh.
the insurance company of the
Oh,
other
that was,
person
They
we
paid
got.
for
They
the
paid
estimate that I came up with, but
Yeah.
we can possibly add to it if it comes out more than
oh,
that.
that's
Yeah,
that's
so
good news.
So Mary Jo reached out to they got the estimates from the different people who would be doing the repair work. And she sent that to me. I sent it to the insurance agent, and they sent a check to the town for the full amount. And I also said, these are just estimates at this point when the work hasn't been done. What if it ends up being higher? And he said, then you'd send those receipts to us, and we would consider reimbursing for that as well.
Every now and then, good
Good.
news comes along.
Yeah.
So that was
It's kind of hard to tell in the wintertime until you move
Sure.
all that frozen dirt,
Yeah.
what's really broke. And
Right.
Yeah.
we'd rather try to somewhat repair them, seeing their early 1800 stones.
Right.
So Mary, talking about those 1800 stones, and short of actually repairing them with the epoxy or whatever they use, has there been any thought into having a volunteer service of some kind try to stand those broken ones up, either with just a rest or something so that they're visible? Because some of them, and the one across from the golf course, are just getting grown over and
What
buried.
what Jim Woodward told me on the ones down that just got damaged is some of the ones that he doesn't feel that the epoxy would hold, but that we don't want to replace with a brand new stone. He brings this material with him and makes like a U channel for the sides to slide into with a frame in the back, and then that will stick in the ground. I mean, it's not going to look like it used to look, but our feeling was we want to keep the look of the old cemetery and the old stone. We'd rather completely replace as few as we have to,
Yeah.
So that was his suggestion, is put up some kind of and he's done it. I mean, he's really big into Civil War. He and this other lady who I got the estimate for doing if we need to replace brand new stones, she'll do it at cost and not charge us anything above that, because they're really into restoring old
He's
stones.
part of the Vermont Cemetery Association.
Probably
isn't he? Yeah.
Woody, Jim
Yeah.
Woodward.
That's
Yeah.
how I know the name.
Yeah, he's very good.
Yeah.
So
So 3,000, what you're suggesting, into capital, and then the other two stays in your current year's budget.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. I can make that change.
And then, yeah, so we're at 32.6 plus the,
And then if you could send me your sort of your list of things, your capital items, I'll make that into the narrative, into the capital budget, and
Okay.
and create a line for the cemetery.
So you
Would be
don't do
helpful.
the flat stones that are common in some places, required in some places because it makes the mowing easier? You know what I mean? They're flat on the ground.
the only place you have to have a flat stone, you can only have one stone on a site. So some people will put one stone up and then put a flat one. If they want to put another one that lists, like Dwight Eddy's, for instance, they have a Dwight Eddy stone, but then you'll also see they have like foot markers that are flat in the ground.
Yeah, right.
But-
Well, where my parents are buried on the Cape, they have to have flat.
Only flat,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's for the mowing.
No, interesting. Anything, Phil?
Well, I mean, I'm all right with moving forward with this. I mean, I think as a town, the cost of the burial should cover the cost. If we're going to maintain this in perpetuity, you can see it's not sustainable, and it will just get more and more and more. And so I'm not a big believer in, having the town pay for my gravestone. I think there's a lot of historical information. Some of the cemeteries are beautiful, and so I'm okay with maintaining them, but they're not sustainable, and the amount of income we're getting is not anywhere near. It doesn't even come close to the cost of mowing. Never mind maintenance, and we're talking in perpetuity. That's forever. That's just not sustainable in the long run. So we may need to, there's no choice. You're going to have to come up with a solution that works in the future. But for now, I get it, people, there's a lot of history there and we have to maintain it, but it's not going to be forever.
So noted, but save conversation for a later time is what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of maintenance that has to go in aside from just the mowing, in terms of and there's some in there for it. And the amount that people pay does not cover the burial. Burial costs are separate. The cost that people pay is just for a plot, because then they have to pay separately for the burial. But that goes directly to whoever's doing the excavating or whatever, and for stone and placing the
Right.
stone. So
But you look at the cemetery reimbursement was $2,800.
yeah,
We're spending $30,000 just to mow it.
yeah,
So I don't know that we're charging enough. And that's in perpetuity.
yeah.
So
Death and
noted.
taxes, you can be sure of it.
Yeah, death and taxes, huh? It makes you wonder, though, how others do it. And maybe you have answers to that. But, there are, just looking at bigger towns around us, do aside from private cemeteries, I guess, do towns actually have different funding mechanisms?
No idea.
Or is it just the process, is it just the price of having a municipal cemetery? I don't know.
There aren't very many private cemeteries in Vermont. They're either municipal cemeteries or a family plot. You can only
Yep.
be buried on your own land if you own that
Your
land. You can be
land,
buried
yeah.
on it. And then there's religious cemeteries. But there are in other states there are private cemeteries. But in Vermont, it's municipal or religious.
So every municipality, I sort of rhetorically ask, every town in Vermont is running a losing operation financially on this? And is that how it works? Or
Have to call around.
Yeah.
And it would be like, I guess my point is let's not reinvent the wheel here. On something like
Yeah,
this.
you have to be a resident of the town in order to buy a plot too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Or be a longtime resident that was
Yeah.
here for 30 years and
Something.
moved out for the last 5 or 8,
It would be, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Just to find out how other places do it. I have a feeling it's kind of the same deal everywhere.
Right, I do too.
Yeah, I'd be happy to be surprised otherwise. You know, but I would have to agree.
But, you know, most funerals these days, from what I'm hearing, I haven't had to be involved in one for a while, are about 10 grand. And
That's right, yeah.
if you, I mean, we're already charging we're charging 800 now for a site with corner markers, so.
Yeah. You
Why-
can do funerals for less, though.
Yeah, but that's why you buy life insurance,
Right.
I guess.
Right.
Some people do.
It's not even cheap to die around here.
No. It isn't.
Yeah.
Anything else on this topic for anybody? You good, Phil?
I'm good. Like I said, you know, I'm all right with supporting this. I'm just pointing out that it's not sustainable.
Good
forever.
point.
And how many stones do you think are in need of repair? I know the one that I'm familiar with across the road from me, there's dozens.
I'd say up in the village cemetery, just on the right-hand side, there's that whole row of like 6. I know we've gotten phone calls about the one that's in is it Roger Cohn's driveway?
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
right there.
You know, they've called about that one. I'd say there's probably 6 or 8 that are lying on the ground in there.
So it's really,
I'm not sure how many.
Well, I mean, I think it'd just be good to get inventory of it, and then we can,
Yeah,
then you can
that's-
make a decision about how to go about it. But at least, you know, get the information, and then we
yeah,
can.
I just think the $3,000 won't even scratch the surface.
No, but that's why if it's a capital,
No
Yeah,
pun
but
intended.
even if you stretched it out over 100 years, you probably
Yeah.
would still scratch the surface.
I imagine.
well,
there'll
maybe
be-
it's at this point you GPS them, and there's a record, and somebody can excavate at some point and know that there's archaeological significance.
And are there grant sources?
Somebody's already doing that, because you can go on a site, find a grave, and so somebody has digitalized a lot of the headstones in Vermont. I know I found my great-grandmother in Swanton that way. Picture of the gravestone.
Well, Find a Grade helped me do the estimate because I was able to look on it and say, hey, this is what it looked like, and most of those were done the last 10 years. So I know it was upright and not broke.
So you're familiar with that?
Yeah.
I imagine some amount of the costs associated with repairing stones will be covered by volunteers too, to some degree. As over the years, you know, you talk about 3,000 not really cutting it.
I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
sure how many
Yeah.
dollars it takes to repair one stone.
Yeah,
but,
nor do I.
I mean, the number's astronomical, how many old stones there are that are just lying flat.
Yeah,
Which is unfortunate, but I don't think the resources are available to.
yeah.
And I know
Touch it.
Glenn Place and Dave Newton went up and fixed a bunch of them up in the village cemetery in the last 5 or 6 years. But
Which is my point, right? Yeah. All right. Are we good on? Are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Phil, you good?
Thank you very much,
Yep.
Mary Jo. This is like, I think we
Yeah.
haven't had.
I'm good.
Thank you.
You know, the.
I agree. I appreciate you coming.
26 years of me being on the board, we haven't had a cemetery commissioner come and visit, so thank you very much.
She's been doing a lot.
Thank you for doing this. I
Thank
really
you, Mary Jo.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Head back, the game may have gone into overtime.
I'll be checking the CD site.
All right.
Aaron, quick, move on. You're right on time.
Moving on, I wanted to note that Tom has just noticed we're exactly on time. It's 9 o'clock. Moving on to town administrator report.
All right,
exactly what I was
so we just came off of the holidays, just starting back in the new year. So we've had a lot of work going on, but a lot of it's been budget focused. But then there's other things that we've had our attention on, trying to gather them right now in my head at the moment, which I meant to provide a little summary. Let's see. I think there's a lot of different directions. I've been talking with for the wastewater upgrade, so I've been spending a lot of time talking to Aldridge and Elliott, talking to attorneys about various different issues that we've had and staffing issues, and trying to fill some positions that we have. A highway maintainer, we have one interview scheduled for the end of this week, and we're working
great.
on a couple, maybe perhaps a second one. So
That's really encouraging.
we are trying, and the storms keep happening. They're not significantly large ones, but significantly
Enough to roll a truck.
enough to
Yeah.
have the trucks out there, and of course the holidays, Christmas Eve, sure
I
enough,
noticed that, yeah.
Christmas Day, and New Year's, I believe too. So it seems
I was
to
driving
be.
home on Christmas Eve from midnight mass and thinking that these guys are out right now.
I couldn't believe it. I looked like, oh no, and it's every year. I think Mike said, I can't remember how many years, maybe 27 Christmases that he's been out or something out of 5. So.
Out of 26.
Actually, yeah, exactly. If you ask him, probably 24 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been a significant amount. So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that people don't always understand is they're out there all the time. And so even on New Year's, they were trying to navigate around all the extra cars at people's houses and having a really hard time. Had a hard time negotiating different developments and things because of the extra traffic around for the holidays. So thank you to our highway department for the extra time they've been putting in, and are quite exhausted, short-staffed, and been working long hours. And that's really all I have.
Moving to Selectboard Forum, I have a couple of things, but I don't have to go first. Anybody?
Go for it.
So I was wondering on a couple of updates, if you had anything. One, the town garage,
As far as,
the water coming inside the
oh
building.
yes, it's no longer coming inside the building.
Yeah,
That was just.
I assumed it wasn't. It was a
Right,
one-time
yeah, that was
thing,
just a
but-
one-time thing. We met, they've figured out that issue, that was resolved.
Yep.
They've done all the remediation work has been
We're
done.
well underway to a solution and putting
Yep.
it behind us.
Yep.
It's really kind of all I was
Yep,
looking
they're
for.
still working out, how the system operates and,
Yeah.
and trying to find the most efficient way for it to operate. And so there's a lot of that work in a new building that takes place for a while, and just making adjustments.
Under control, and it probably won't happen again.
So that piece,
yeah,
yes, that
yeah.
piece should be under control and not happen again. It'll be ongoing for a little while, just trying to make the adjustments that are necessary to make sure it's working and functioning as it was designed.
And then my second question also is about water, but more about getting it out of the ground, and if there's an update on the
Yes,
well. 'Cause
yes.
I know they started that
Yep,
just after
so they
Christmas.
started drilling that.
And
if I
not
didn't
that
bring
we would necessarily have an update just yet, because I know there's going to be some time that's gonna take.
Actually, I think they stopped at around 538 feet. They're at 250 gallons a minute. They hit their fracture at lower. They didn't have to go as far down as the Wayner wells, and so they really felt like this is a good number.
encouraging.
So it's very encouraging so far, and they wanted to stop. And that was at the recommendation of the hydrogeologist, just to make sure it doesn't impact anything. But they felt really encouraged by this. So
That's good.
yes,
Good news.
yep. So that was good news. And then the hydrogeologist will be doing her work in the spring of just checking to make sure at what other make sure there's no impact to any other neighboring wells. They're going to be doing the drawdown test. I don't know if that was. I think that's happening maybe today and tomorrow. They were early this week is when they were going to be doing those tests. So we'll find out more information from that too.
You'll certainly let us know.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else?
Yes, I'll report on the big event.
I thought you might.
So it was close to New Year's. Numbers were, about steady with last year. Not quite as much as we'd like, but still very encouraging. I made a deposit today of just over $11,000.
Nice.
Wow.
That's after everything was paid.
That's incredible.
And there's still almost $2,000 out there in credit card from the auction. So a very successful night.
It's a heck of a
Everybody
big
had
sale.
a good time. It's a great
great.
big sale. So, and people keep dropping bottles off. They keep making donations.
Yeah.
People are now offering to donate their services to build dugouts.
Yeah.
So, as expected, the community came together for this project, and it's darn close to 100% complete
And
at
as
this
you
point. So,
as you end this event, you're looking towards the
we're
next
looking
one.
toward. We're already talking about the Calcutta in the spring,
Yeah.
and it just keeps rolling. So,
That's awesome.
the group is very motivated. We have fun doing this project.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice to see it come together. So it's going to be even better to see all 3 fields used, and at very little expense to the people of Hinesburg, which has been one of our main goals right from the get-go. So it's an amazing project. It really is.
Absolutely.
The amount of money that we've raised
Good job.
and what we've done.
Yeah, it's
So
amazing.
thank my crew, because our crew has been fantastic.
Yeah.
They really have.
Good work on all of your part.
Well, we'll give you some credit too, Tom.
Yes.
Well, just a little bit, but I've enjoyed it. There's been some challenging parts, some frustrating parts, but for the most part, what we've accomplished in this really a short amount of time, the quality of the project that we have it's second to none, really is.
Yeah.
So,
And it'll benefit generations to come.
Yep.
Yeah,
So-
absolutely.
Very good. Another thing I think you guys want to talk about is that we talked about, I think, at the last meeting of having a plan for Chief Costa's retirement and what steps we're going to be taking to hire a new chief. So I think you guys were going to discuss that, sort of map
Yes.
that out.
We can move on to that unless anybody has anything else.
I had a couple items,
Please.
Okay.
and they really are, I think, for Renee. On the budget report on how we're doing so far this year,
Yep.
where I looked at things and there were a few items that seemed to be high, but they made sense when you looked at, in some cases, one large payment we might have to make that we make at the beginning of the budget. So, were there any surprises that you saw in our budget? At 50% so far through the year.
I know there's some, in the fire department, and I think Al had already shared with you,
Yes.
he
Yep.
knew and was aware that they were running high. Health insurance is tracking high. I'm just trying to find and making sure that the percentages there's certain percentages that need to go to the enterprise fund versus the general fund. And there's definitely been an employee mix change and increases and things like that. So that's one that's really hard to forecast. So we
Yeah.
do our best, but just an employee mix change can make a big difference, or any other increases. So they go on. You have to do. They do on a calendar year. So we're doing an estimate on what the current is, but then you have to
Right.
make a guess for the next 6 months. So
Yeah.
that's one that I've been watching, but we're definitely trending high. So I'm trying to find the right figure to put in there for FY20. That's why I have that one highlighted.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to do some more checking into it. But it's a hard one to really to get it right.
Okay.
Was there anything
I
else?
can see that too, but overall, there's no real giant surprises there.
No.
Things seem to be, humming along.
Yeah, no, I think overall we're looking pretty good. I think our budget figures were pretty good in general, and we seem to be tracking pretty well.
Good. I did see that fire and rescue was up.
Yes.
And I think Al did tell us, and the number of calls. So that's probably one that we'll have more discussions on, I'm sure.
Absolutely. Yep.
See that go up.
Yep.
Then the other thing I had questions were about this upcoming budget. You have some incomes on the income side. I had a couple of questions. Well, one, overall in the budget, did you put in a salary change for everybody? I know some departments had put things in, but generally, are all the salary, increases, expected increases in that overall budget?
Yes, I ended up changing them so they're all consistent. Right now, it shows a 3%.
Okay.
But you guys can talk about that if there's something out, if a different figure you want
Right.
me to put in. But I just tried to make them all uniform. So
right,
there's a
that's
couple
good.
of them that look a little different than when you saw them with the department head. I know.
Right.
So.
Right. No, that was good. So that explains that. So that's good.
Yep.
And then you have property tax increase. Have we gotten a number on the overall grand list at this point?
So I've been talking with Lisa, the NIMRIC person, a little bit about that. They are forecasting a very small, minimal. So
Okay.
I've put in, I think the figure that I have in there to predict the tax rate is like a 0.5% rather than a full
Okay.
percent. A lot of times we've done like 1.1% or something like that.
Yeah.
I am budgeting for a 0.5% in the grand list. So
And
either,
that ends up being around $300K roughly in income tax increases. I think that's about what.
in the property tax,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep. And then one last question on the property tax. I noticed the Vermont gas, we had at $100,000 last year.
Yep.
And this year it's 0. Did you put that into the property tax this
So
time?
yes, that will be reflected in the property tax this time. Last year it was because of the timing of it, so it wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
So I showed that as a separate revenue, but called it out in the memo. So this time, we definitely don't want to show that as an additional revenue because it'll be
Right.
incorporated in the taxes received.
Yeah. So it's just normally, and that's been rolled up into the property tax.
Yeah,
Okay. Those are the questions I had. Thank you.
you're welcome.
Anything else for anybody?
Oh,
Yes, go ahead.
I just had some feedback, and I guess we all did get an email about the Baldwin Road intersection.
Oh, I didn't.
And,
It was a while ago.
yeah,
Okay.
that there's been some, and maybe we can talk with Mike about it.
Okay.
Is that the reflectors have gotten mowed over a couple of times. So, some people have commented that it seems to be working. Other people have, I think that they have had to respond, and I will forward the email. And
Okay.
I thought that she, I said that she needed to copy you on it.
Okay.
So, that, and I've made a point of driving there, and it is a little, there's certain places where I can't see where the stop bar is now, but you are very vulnerable when you're out as far as where the stop sign is, and if people are coming. Heading east, coming down that hill, and they lose it on that corner, you're in a bad place. But if you know enough to stop back
Stop bar.
far enough that you can look up, you're okay. But so anybody who's familiar with the road would do that. If you're not familiar with that and you pull all the way up to the stop bar, it's tough. And so I'm just wondering if Mike can give us a report actually on what has happened in terms of him having to replace the reflectors, and whether, it seems like there could be a bigger shoulder there, and then people could get off or whatever.
Yeah.
Just would like to have an update on that.
Yeah.
I think what I have heard him say is, people they're still not stopping or slowing down at that intersection before they exit, and so that's why they're hitting the reflectors and things like that. So that's the comment.
Maybe an option might be move the reflectors back.
Yeah, that's-
and just build up that shoulder.
Yes.
Keep the shoulder where it is. Just move the reflectors back.
Back further.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, further to the east. That
Right.
seems like an obvious thing, but then people aren't going to know that it's the edge of the pavement. But
Right.
if you widen the shoulder, then people are still okay that if they go off onto the shoulder.
Sure.
But I think that's what is needed.
Just move the
Yeah,
reflectors.
and I thought we had talked about that when we first
when debating this whole thing to begin with.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have no problem with the intersection itself,
Yeah.
because I do think it's much like what we've done elsewhere throughout town, a lot of places.
Right.
And
But you
think-
do, I mean, and I think it's true in a lot of places, is that if you know the roads, you're fine.
Right.
If you're a visitor to town, sometimes it's, which is true anywhere you
Yeah.
go.
And it
So-
just wouldn't be a traditional intersection. It's not
Right.
the traditional
Yeah. Yeah.
V-Trans
Yeah.
section, so it's accommodated
Yeah.
as best they could. All right.
The topic of moving forward with finding a new police chief
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
might be worth talking about right now.
Right.
Without any great detail, but more in sort of a general way, because at this time we still have time on our hands. I think we're still, end of June was the
Right, but that
date
that
with
can
some
come
flexibility.
quickly.
Yeah,
Yep.
it come quickly. I think it's important to not be reactionary to this, especially to such an important role in town on so many levels, and to be thinking about, each one of us thinking about not so much the candidate, who that new person will be, but rather what we're looking for out of a police chief. And one of the ways that you can kind of frame that thinking in your head is what we have now and how it works. And if you could change anything now, would you? Is there anything that here's an opportunity to improve upon or change what we're currently doing? Maybe what we're currently doing is exactly the way we want. An example of what I'm talking about is right now we have a working police chief who's also an officer who takes shifts, as opposed to more maybe a desk chief who doesn't take shifts. This as an example. There are many others. And to be thinking broadly about what role that new chief will play in the department and in our community and the municipality as a whole. So with all that said, it's often helpful to bring other perspectives into this conversation. I fully expect each one of us on the select board will be involved in this conversation to whatever level that you want to be. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as I understand it, it's your hire, Renee, is that correct? Because he or she would be a municipal employee.
It's a department head.
Yeah.
So I think the select board
Yeah.
participates in
Certainly
that
we
hire,
participate,
yeah,
but
the hire.
But are you saying that the yes, no comes from the board in conjunction with your office?
I believe so,
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
For department heads.
For department heads.
For sure.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then to bring this conversation out into the community, into other stakeholders that where it's appropriate, but without slowing the process down or getting into the weeds of without getting into the weeds. So immediately what my mind goes to as a stakeholder would be the fire department. So you'd want to perhaps
Well, are you basically saying that you're suggesting that we have a committee?
Well, that's where I'm going with this conversation, but I'm not saying we need to.
Okay.
But I'm kind of floating this idea out there to kind of get a sense of where the other 4 or 5, including your office, is on this, because I think it's really important that right from the beginning that we're all together in how we're going to do this and how we're going to go about doing this. It's an important role, is the bottom line. It's a really important role. And choosing this person to take over this role is going to be up there on one of the more important things that we do this year. As I hope that there's nothing more serious coming our way. And whether it's a committee or whether it's maybe more solicited advice that is specifically asked for of individuals, I'm kind of open to that conversation. of how that goes. But I think that there is benefit in opening up this conversation a little bit more than, the five of us and your office. And presumably, Chief Koss has a few things to say about it too.
Right.
As well, so we want to certainly include him in that. But I'm open to your conversation about that, and keeping in mind not necessarily needing to get into the details of it tonight, but where your thinking is.
So a model that you've used with it.
Wait.
Oh, go ahead.
Phil?
Yeah, I mean, I think we got to put together a committee, and we've done this a couple times on town administrator. We've gotten, some select board folks, obviously people in the town who might weigh in, like you mentioned, the fire, maybe Al or something from the fire department weigh in. One of the officers probably on that committee, 2 or 3 people from the town. Making sure we have really good leadership and people on that committee who understand the process itself. But I think we've had good success that way. Let them have some autonomy to move forward as long as it's an open process. I mean, I think we can start moving, in that direction. I mean, I don't think the select board themselves as a 5-board group can do a very good process, and to bring different people in at different times will be kind of messy, I think. But your idea of what are we looking for is an excellent question, and that would be the first thing the committee would work on, is like, what is the job description? So right in the job description, do we expect a working chief, or do we expect not, or do we not expect that? So I think you're going to put together a job description that could run through the select board and say, yeah, that looks right, assuming the committee, can come together and say, here's our recommendation. Obviously, Renee would be a member of that committee or a working person on that committee. But I think, as quickly as we can, we put together a committee we can trust to do this job and let them get started.
Yeah.
That's my opinion anyways.
Yep, I agree with Phil, and I think we should get started on forming this committee right away. Like Renee said, June's going to be here before we know it.
Yeah.
And that the committee would help write the job description.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we can take the old job description and give that to a committee and then say, how would we revise it or change it and get some input. But I would very much support a committee approach as opposed to, talking to individuals and then us trying to synthesize what people are saying. And, I think that we do have some excellent resources in the community that can help us create a good process for the hiring.
Yeah, I can
So-
think several.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think it would be, we can, the whole question is how do we form the committee is a hard one. And do we identify some individuals that we think would add to the process and not completely open it up to everyone? I think that's always a hard decision to make, but I think that is a decision that we can make, and to make sure that we have a diversity of people on there, and but people who have can contribute to that. So, I think especially people who have some kind of human resources background or organizational background. So maybe the way to start is for us to each maybe make a list of some people who we think might be appropriate, and then we can share that with each other for the next meeting.
So it could be a list of those people, and then also a mix of staff and different
Yeah.
people that, maybe from the community that they would be interacting with in that
Right.
role.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, Tom?
I'm kind of in agreement.
Yeah.
Committee approach. I know that the hard part for me would be how to choose the people in a
Yeah.
timely manner.
Right.
Right.
That's where my concern is.
Yeah.
Because before we know it, it's going to be February.
Yep.
I mean, it's going to be, oh, well, we meet weekly at this point, but how much
Yeah.
time do we have to devote to it?
Right.
Yeah.
And
Maybe for next meeting, we should just kind of each come in with a list of some people.
Maybe. Or I think if we put it out to the community, we might get some instant feedback, and maybe we could whittle it down. I'm.
But
don't
I
really
think
know the
we
best
might get
approach.
some instant feedback, but there might be some people who we would like to ask individually because we think they would be, they would contribute to it. So I don't mind opening it up to the committee. I mean, to the community and posting that we're looking for people, but, you know, should we decide, okay, it's a 7-member committee?
Yeah.
And, you know, there's certain people who, you know, we would like to ask and it's not,
That's where my thinking is going, is that I in my mind, I don't have the full committee in my head, but I have the majority of it. You know, and I would easily create a list of people, whether or not they'd want to serve,
Right.
I don't know. That's part of the ask, but, you know, but I've at least identified people in my mind who might be interested in this kind of work. And, yeah, I think a personal invitation would be probably welcomed by them, you know, to ask if they want to participate in the process. And then to see who else might be interested that we're not even thinking about. You know, there's
Right.
there's a lot of people in our community that we
we don't know.
don't come into
Yeah.
contact
Exactly.
with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's part of my
Yeah.
reasoning is there's people who very much appreciate the police force who we're not familiar with it
Exactly.
whatsoever.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would hate to pick and choose people that we know over those that we don't
Yep.
for just that reason.
What you could do is decide a number that you want on this
Yeah.
committee. So you fill the seats with certain people that you want to be, that should be on it to balance it. And then have 2 or 3 open spots that we open up to the public and fill it that way, so that you know you're gonna get the different pieces. You'll have someone that's a human resources person and this, you know, that sort of a balance
Yep.
on there. But then also letting the public, and the residents be part of it if they want to participate.
So I very much like the idea of coming to the next meeting with an idea of what this committee will look like, even if it's not completely fleshed out for each one of us, and with the intent of coming out of that meeting of bringing forth an announcement to the community. Hey, we got this thing. Do you want to participate? And this is sort of what the work is. So, scope of what the work is, what the committee's responsibility for, a timeline, perhaps might be good to put on there as well. An amount of how many people on this committee. We often do things in odd numbers. Is 5 enough? Do we want 9? Is that too many? You know, is 7 the number? This kind of thing. And even if you don't have in your mind the individuals, the stakeholders, you know, of who you're thinking. And I think with that, I think we could very easily get this moving forward.
So can I make a suggestion?
Please.
For the next meeting, we all come in with
Whatever we
people-
have. Yep.
Whatever we have. If we decide the number's 9, and we have 9 people who we're all confident in, maybe we can skip opening it up, just for the sake of time.
Yep.
Because
Agreed.
if we have to add that layer, you're gonna talk at least another couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then by the time they're charged with their mission, it's gonna take them
You're
another
at the end of February.
3 weeks to get organized and,
And then they do their work during March.
Right.
And they interview in April to
I
May.
haven't really thought about a lot who
Right.
I want to appoint at this point, but
Yeah.
just sitting here tonight, I've got a couple that
'Cause if
popped
you-
into my mind.
If
and
you're
maybe-
thinking that the June 30th is sort of our deadline, you probably want to have some sort of decision by the beginning of June.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take some time for, you know, if not sooner, right? You know, but, you know, middle of May, end of beginning of June somewhere. And so you just back up from that deadline right there.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. It will get away from us really quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because likely whoever that person is has a job currently, and so they're gonna need to give appropriate
likely.
notice. Likely,
It's likely.
so.
not always.
It is a nice job for those retired people.
So,
Retired cops.
And that's a good comment though, you know, because like is that you know, what kind of individual are we looking? Is it somebody that we're looking that is gonna settle in for 10, 15 plus years, or is it somebody who is just sort of transitioning out of their related professional career to finish a year or 2 or 3? You know, it's an important decision to make. Does that sound good for everybody? Phil?
I'm good with that. Yeah, I think I appreciate you bringing this up and getting us to move forward on it because it is time critical.
yes.
Perfect.
Okay.
With that, we move on to our next agenda item, which is almost there at the end. Review minutes from December 17th, 2018. So I guess, and including we had 2 meetings, a morning and an evening meeting on that date. So if you want to take them one by one, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the executive session held at 7 o'clock on the morning.
And a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have discussion. Usually the minutes are signed at the end, so we know who wrote them, and those weren't. I just was curious who did them. It would be good to put in
Include
there the name. I don't know. I assume it was Renee or Joy.
Did you do it or I do it?
You did it, I believe.
Yeah,
Well,
I
no,
don't-
maybe it was me. It was a long time.
I think there was a combination, like a joint effort.
It's been a group effort.
Put your both names on it. Yeah, if you
Here we
wanted
go.
to.
The Joy and Renee show. Yes, we can certainly do that
So noted, thank you.
if we identify who it was.
I'll let you guys work that out.
Yes.
Thanks for bringing that up. Jarring the past.
Anything on the executive session, Phil?
No, I looked at them. I looked at both and actually didn't see anything. So
All right. So motion to approve the morning December 17th minutes. All say aye.
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 I
Moving to the evening minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of December 17th, 7 PM meeting.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I did not find any
Oh,
errors.
come on. Wow. Find something.
Not even a misplaced capital or a missing letter.
We'll write this down.
You know, what I was wondering was,
We did, yes.
there was no public comment at that meeting, huh? No members of the public attended?
On December 17th?
Yeah, okay.
I didn't see the attached list.
Yeah, and it says no public comment,
Yeah,
so,
so maybe that's why.
right.
That would make sense, right? You wouldn't send it to me if it was blank, or would you?
Oh,
The sign-in sheet?
signing sheet wasn't attached?
I didn't see it.
Okay, I'll make sure that gets sent in then.
Okay.
I thought you meant the attached CDC attachment that I did.
No, actually, that was just a link to our Dropbox.
Because we did have.
That's what when I clicked on it, so I don't know
Well, I'm
what
trying to
was going
remember,
on
was
there.
it that meeting or was it the meeting before?
Well, last meeting wasn't the Hannaford discussion or
No.
Lot 15 discussion,
Right.
but I think there was people in the audience last
Yeah,
meeting.
Mike
think so.
came,
Yeah.
and
Oh, that's right,
Alex
it was
came.
conservation.
Yeah, she
Commission.
has she has it.
Yeah.
That's right, my wife is here.
See, you remembered. You remembered. All right. Any discussion on these minutes? With Marilee finding nothing. Do we move to
Well, should we
approve?
wait until we find out if there was
Well, we
audience
can make
members
it
here, I guess,
with the
additions?
additions. I mean, I don't think there was any public
There
comment.
was no public
There was no
comment.
comment.
No, but I
You
didn't know
would've
if we
recorded
listed
that.
audience members on every.
No, we
Yeah.
just have the attached.
And the
attendance
attached
sheet.
list.
I'll just, yeah, the
Yeah,
so we just need to add
attachment
the-
didn't come through for
Right.
some reason.
Okay.
I'll make
Yeah.
sure that
I'm fine
gets
then.
sent.
Yeah, we'll just put that in. All in favor of approving the minutes for December 17, 2018, 7 p.m., say aye.
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 I
And they are approved. Moving to
I'll make a motion to approve the
approving
warrants.
warrants, payroll, and we have AP warrants now.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the warrants, including payroll, say aye.
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 I
Aye. Number 10, consider a motion to enter executive session under provisions of section 1 VSA, section 313A, 1A for contracts. I would say B, correct?
Not labor relations stuff.
F, I know for sure.
Yep.
I know F. I'm looking for the one that we have to do for that
Right.
one. Do you see it listed there? Oops, let me go back up. It would be 2.
Yep, there's that one.
So A, 1A, 2, and I would say 1B.
B.
Yeah. Even though, I mean, it's not union.
So, and you're gonna make 2 motions. You're
Yep.
you're gonna state why you're going
Yep.
into executive session.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it's A1, A2,
It would be A,
yeah,
and then 1A,
yep,
and 1B,
1B, okay.
and
So if you just say VSA 3A,
yep.
1, you can cover it, but you can state why
Mm-hmm.
you're going in A2.
So for A1, let's go back to your email so we get this right. This would relate to,
So there's
is it this
3
one?
different reasons. So there's personnel
Yep,
and for real estate negotiations,
Contracts.
yep,
contracts, and then litigation.
yep. There you go.
I'll make that
I'll
motion.
make a motion that we go into executive session because premature disclosure concerning, as Renee said, a personnel matter, a legal issue, and a contract issue.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Then we need to make a second motion to,
I'll make a second motion to include Renee and Joy to discuss the
Yep.
above issues.
and a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And anything that we can report coming out of that in terms of motions made will be reflected in the minutes, as we always do. But otherwise, we will go into executive session and come out of executive session, and our intent is to adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right.